one. Ready?
There we go. So I'd like to bring to order this council meeting for May 7, 2019. Please join me. Pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item.
Roll call. Councilor Ward.
Here.
Councilor Colby. Here. Councilor Burnell.
Here.
Councilor La Rochelle.
Here.
Councilor Albert.
Here.
Councilor Lund.
Here. Next item.
Is Order 2019-87, the proclamation for the 50th anniversary of the Municipal Clerks Week. Do you have a motion?
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
And I'll read it as follows. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, and whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most important it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now, therefore, we, the Lisbon Town Council, do recognize the week of May 5th through May 11th, 2019, as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk, Twyla Lysat, Deputy Clerk, Lisa Smith, and Assistant Clerk, Nina Hodgkin, and to all municipal clerks for their vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. All those in favor? Order passed, 6-0.
Next item.
Would Lisa?
Yep. If I could have Lisa Smith and Anita Hodgkin, please stand up. We want to thank you for attending tonight and for all that you do. Thank you.
And you too, Twyla.
You're very welcome. Order 2019-88, the proclamation for Kids to Parks Day. Whereas May 18th, 2019 is the 9th Kids to Park Day organized and launched by the National Park Trust, held annually on the 3rd Saturday of May, and whereas Kids to Parks Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit America's parks, and whereas it is important to introduce a new generation to our nation's parks, and whereas we should encourage children to lead a more active lifestyle to combat the issues of childhood obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and hypercholesterolemia, and whereas Kids to Parks Day is open to all children and adults across the country to encourage a large and diverse group of participants. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and outdoors, and whereas the Lisbon Parks and Recreation Department invites all families to participate in the annual fishing derby at Beaver Park on this day. And now, therefore, we, the Town Council of the Town of Lisbon, do hereby proclaim to participate in Kids to Parks Day. We urge residents of Lisbon to make time on May 18th to take the children in their lives to a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Order passed, 6-0.
Next item. This guy.
At this time, we'll do the town report dedication. So you can start with the first paragraph.
So, if I could get Representative Mason and family up front, please.
The town council would like to present to Representative Rick Mason and his family this year's first copy of the annual town report for Lisbon, which was dedicated in memory of Gina Mason. We'll do an official unveiling.
A drum roll, please.
Very much appropriate. So I'll let you look at it. There you go.
Thank you.
And I have a few things to say. Let me open up this one. Take a peek, and then you can some boxes, so be sure to tell your friends to come down and get one. So, I will read their dedication in the front of the book, which reads as follows. Gina served the citizens of Lisbon in many, many ways. She served as an election clerk in 2004. Let's do this way. So Gina served the citizens of Lisbon in many, many ways. She served as an election clerk in 2004. In 2006, Lisbon transitioned from a selectman town manager form of government to a council town manager form of government. She ran for office and won, serving on Lisbon's first council, and continued to serve until 2013. She then ran for school committee in 2014 and won, serving on the school committee until her passing. Gina will be remembered for many things, but one of the roles she cherished most was volunteering on the Moxie Festival Committee. She started orchestrating the yearly Moxie Parade in 2010 and was involved very much in the parade in some form since its inception. In November 2016, she was elected to serve in the state legislature representing the town she loved. She was particularly proud to be serving with her son, the then Senate Majority Leader Garrett Mason. Gina and Garrett made history serving as a mother-son team in the legislature from Lisbon. I was told that she never let a legislative day go by without first stopping by Garrett's office to give him a hug. We have all missed her, our truly great friend, and we would like to have you accept this copy of the annual town report that we put together with a Moxie theme as a token of our expression of appreciation for her service from her community.
I am deeply honored. Thank you very much. Gina, my wonderful wife, loved the town of Lisbon. Everything she'd done, she wanted to make this town better. She was so excited to come to council. She was so excited to be serving on the Moxie committee. We'd go get an ice cream in town, and I'd go home, and she'd say, no. Let's take a ride around my town. She loved this town, and she loved the state of Maine, and she liked to help people. And I am deeply honored by this, and I thank you very much. And I'm sure my son would like to say something.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you very much. This is a really big deal for us. You guys, every single one of you served with my mom in some capacity, and you guys know the love that she had for our town. And while it's sad that she's not here anymore and we miss her every single day, we see her legacy every day. And she works so hard, whether it be on this council or up in the State House. I never see a day go by without seeing her trail marks wherever I go. So I won't make my wife say anything, but we're very honored. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Take care. Next
next item, please.
The school budget under public hearings.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Tracy.
Thank you.
So this evening I put together a PowerPoint presentation that goes over the school budget.
Thank you, Tracy.
There's a lot of numbers and the information we actually have copies of the actual budget, the warrant articles, the expenditures, and then a copy of this presentation as well up here on this table. So if anybody wants a copy, they can grab one. The presentation is similar to past years. The proposed budget that you're seeing in front of you, or it's actually the budget that was just approved by the school committee, has the ED 279 figures that we received in January, and the ED 279 is the subsidy form that we received from the state. There hasn't been any changes to that, so the numbers that we're presenting this evening we believe are going to be the numbers that we'll have. The recommendations in this budget include an overall budget increase to the total budget of $425,988, which is about a 2.6% increase. The total budget, including adult education, is $16,838,035. The other number that we'll talk about, and I'll go over this in a second, is what the total budget, or what the budget is, but the other number that we talk about is the actual amount that has to be raised locally to pay for has to be raised locally to receive the state funding and to operate the schools. And that number this year, including adult education, is $7,410,216, which would result in a 5.5% increase, or $386,434. Now, I don't know the mill rate, but I think in the past it's been around 500 and something thousand per mill. And I know these numbers are lower than what they were last year, but I didn't put those numbers in here because I just wanted to focus on this budget. But if you look at the records from last year, the numbers have decreased. The local contribution is actually a little bit higher, but there's some things that we did on our actual budget to help long term. We used less of the unassigned fund balance to build the budget because our insurance rates came in lower. And so, although the impact locally is more, the use of the unassigned balance is lower by about 70-something thousand, which I'll go over in a second. So this presentation, I talked a little bit about the total budget, the contributing factors, or I will be talking about the contributing factors, the state contribution, total local funding, the budget history. I have a 10-year graph that I share each year. The use of the capital reserve fund, the unassigned, which I've mentioned a couple times already, the fund balance amount that we use to build budgets, and then some remaining variables that could either cost or have savings for us. So as far as the total budget goes, it's a combination of both the state and local contributions, adult ed, and revenues. The total amount proposed in this budget, I've given you the total numbers, but as far as revenues go, you'll notice that we are only using, or we have $360,126 in revenues, which is a decrease of $184,361. The majority of that is the nutrition budget, which, if you remember in the audit report, the auditors had asked us to remove the nutrition from our general budget and move it into what they call a 600 line, which is outside of the budget. So what we have to do now is we have to make sure that we raise enough money through payments for the food to cover the cost. We did build in $200,000 into our local budget to help offset that because the auditors, if you remember, had mentioned that we were operating in the hole probably $175,000, $180,000 a year. And so that's the use of revenues for this budget has decreased by about 34%. The state contribution has increased 2.2%, or $192,464 increase from last year, for a total of $9,056,649.
And the local contribution, as I mentioned before, has increased 5.5%, or $386,434. And again, the decrease in revenues is a direct result, or will directly impact the amount of local contribution. And one of the things I've shared through my presentation with the board and the community is that when you build your budgets on revenues, I think 2 years ago we used several hundreds of thousands of dollars in unassigned account to build our budget. When you dedicate that kind of money into ours was 190-ish or so, when you dedicate that kind of money, that means that you have to have that amount of money left over. And 2 years ago in our audit, we only had, $5,000 as a result of starting the Gartley Street School. So we want to get that number. It's down to where it was probably 5 years ago. And so you want to try to keep that number as low as possible, because if revenues don't come in, then you have to find them somewhere else. So again, the total budget, and this is the kind of confusing piece, because even though our total budget is showing 2.6, if you start looking at the 2.6% versus the 5.5, it's because obviously 2.6% of 16 million is different than 5.5% of 7 million. So so you have to be careful of the numbers, but if people have questions, when I'm done, you feel free to ask. The biggest contributing factors in this budget include the budget utilizes $76,059 less of our unassigned fund balance. Salaries and benefits are the driving factor in our budget, as in most school budgets. It's over 70%. I don't have the exact percentage, but I know it's over 70%. And in the past, as of last year, we were able to determine that without doing anything, our budget would increase almost yearly around $425,000 to $450,000, depending on where insurance and stuff came in. It's just we have that many employees and salaries and percentages on those salaries. Maine State Retirement, although there was legislation to possibly move that back into, move that out of the school department or on property tax, there's that legislation is, to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing been changed with that. So that was transferred over to the property tax or to the local taxes in 2013, I believe. The nutrition fund, and as I said before, although it looked like a decrease, we still had $200,000 in there. So our numbers, as far as revenue, we didn't use the revenue to build the budget, but we did raise it locally. We raised money locally to cover the cost of nutrition. And then in the Gartley Street School, we do have in this budget, our budget is basically, to start off, our budget is everything that we currently have. It covers all the existing programs and services that we have. And in addition to that, the day treatment program that we have at Gartley Street School, which we actually save money by keeping kids in district, but also by generating revenues from outside schools. We have, we've reached almost the capacity in just 3 years. We've added a teacher who's actually already working down there. That was an ed tech prior, and 2 ed techs. The one additional ed tech is going to be part of the alternative program, and that's going to allow us to work with students in grades 9 and 10. Our current alternative ed program only works with students in grades 11 and 12, and we have a number of students who we believe in 9th and 10th grade that would benefit from some type of alternative program, and where the regular education just isn't fitting their needs. And then again, the revenue decrease is primarily the result of nutrition and the unassigned. The state contribution, I've already mentioned the amounts there. It is increased by 2.2%. And then the essential programs and services, this is what, if you were here for the school committee meeting, the essential programs and services is a model that has been developed that outlines the minimal services that a school department needs to operate, and through those there's a formula as part of the ED 279 that shows you where you're at and then what you're above this essential programs and services model. So we've been above the essential programs and services model for almost since it started, and the biggest contributing factors to why we're above the essential programs and services model is athletics and co-curricular, nutrition, because we did have to add money in our budget to cover that, teacher retirement. There is a service center penalty because we're not currently part of a service center, we do receive a penalty, and this year it's about $90,000 in state subsidy. But we are looking at our options, and there is a Western Maine collaborative that's in the process of creating a service center that we can join after it's been created. We did work with RSU4. You may remember or heard us talking about some of the stuff that we've done with RSU4. Our adult ed program is basically run out of the RSU4 office. They work in both buildings, but they've taken that. We have a curriculum consultant, and we also have a lot of their day treatment students in our program. So they are paying. They're saving money by sending them here, and we're making money by generating revenues by having them here. And the other piece is substitute pay, where they only pay a certain percentage of sub pay for the year. I've already mentioned the total local funding, which is the amount that's required to be raised locally through taxes in order to receive your subsidy. And that is the amount, the $7,410,216, or a 5.5% increase locally. The 10-year history, this is probably too small to read, but it does give you a history, and it does show you the three important pieces. One is the total budget, which is the top, state contribution, which is the middle line, and then the local share, which is the bottom line. The Capital Reserve Fund was established in 2012. I think you have an action item this evening. But what it does is it allows us to use money. We can transfer money from our unassigned account into a Capital Reserve Fund to do maintenance of plant and minor remodeling, so that we're not including things in our budget. What you'll be looking at this evening is the first stage of installing the lights on the athletic fields. Currently, the balance in the unassigned account, in the Capital Reserve Fund is $81,983, and we have built in the use of $43,209 from Capital Reserve Fund to cover basically our performance contract fees and maintenance agreements, the service agreements and stuff. So that's what we've used each year to cover those agreements, and that is built into this particular budget. The unassigned amount I've mentioned multiple times throughout this presentation. We are using $76,059 less than we have in the past, but the total number, if you look at your subsidy comparison sheets, you'll notice that in the past, last year it was $194,270, and this year it's $118,211, which is the amount that we had probably 5 years ago. And then if you wanted to go even further back, you'll see that we did use, I think it was closer to $400,000 3 years ago. So we've lowered that amount down and trying to utilize less of those funds to build a budget, whereas we could use those funds for capital projects and et cetera if we have money left over. The remaining variables that we have that are going on that are related is anticipated actual resignations, and then restructuring that occurs as a result of those resignations. We have people who change jobs. We were able to have 2 people agree to contracts for next year today, and we'll have more of those as we move forward. We have multiple openings that we're interviewing for right now, and so we can get resignations as early as now, and we can get resignations as early as August. So by the time the budget's approved, those variables aren't included, so we don't know what people are going to take for insurance, and we don't know what people are making for salaries. So those things can always offset or can impact your budget, whether for the positive or the negative. The use of additional capital reserve, which we haven't done that, but that could be an option. Special education, the cost of students coming into the district or leaving the district, those costs can either be a plus or a minus in any budget. You never know. Generally, of course, by the time this budget's approved, we'll have multiple students register. We've had meetings all week, last 2 days with CDS. I think we have 18 students that are on CDS caseload that could potentially be coming into the district, and a lot of them, the majority of them, will need special ed services. Unanticipated revenue, I would say the biggest factor for that would be our Gartley Street School because of the Main State billing and stuff that we've done. We've increased the amount of revenue that we're going to generate with the Gartley Street School from it was 91,000 last year to 135,000, and we think that we can meet that as long as the caseloads stay the way they are. Because we are able, because the staff in that particular building, they're hired and they're trained to do certain things, and they can bill out for main care, and so we're also this year for the first time we are doing our own billing. We have people who were trained that we hired that were trained to do the billing, and so we're able to not pay the whatever percentage it was for collecting of those fees. And then again, the unassigned amount fund balance is something that I think we've utilized. We've utilized every year, but I think the amount that we currently have in there is fine. But there is the option if something were to happen, we could possibly actually one more week, I think, have different numbers for you. But I think the numbers that you have this evening are going to be the numbers that will need to go to referendum or be considered for referendum, as our insurance, all those things, all that stuff has come in, which sometimes there's things out there, but at this point, all the stuff is in to the best of our knowledge. Again, a summary, which I started with. The budget is a total increase of $425,988, which is a 2.6% increase on the total budget, which is the total budget is $16,838,035. The local funding that the school committee approved and that will be presented to you next week is $7,410,216, which would result in a $386,434 increase in the local taxes. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, for the listening public, Rick, could you tell us where you guys started, just for perspective?
I can.
What was the percentage and what cuts and where we're landing now?
I can tell you that the sheet that we hand out all the time, the actual the school department budget summary report that we send out, I think the date on this is January 31st. We did do some changes in there, and the total amount, the increase would have, at the time, was $565,400. There wasn't a lot of, I can't say there was a lot of reductions when it came to staff and programs and things, because the directors and administrators, when they come in, if they have proposals like that, they weren't brought to the committee. So a lot of those, there's no wish list stuff in here, or
right.
It was
that
mostly
was
the
a
result
solid
of.
Base to start.
It was pretty. If you look at this sheet, you will see the majority of the numbers where it says dollar difference were all zeros. Now we don't, because there's so many pages, we don't print those out every time. So we did start with that. So that's where we started, and so we've moved it down now. The other thing, the biggest change in here was insurance. We originally budgeted 9%, came in at 1 point. I can't remember what the amount was, but it was quite a bit of savings on.
Okay.
But again, the budget for the most part has remained its salaries and benefits.
So roughly neighborhood of $200,000 reduction from that January starting point is what you're telling us.
Correct. Yeah, and the majority of that is based on insurances and changes in health plans and stuff that we know of, and then we have 2 retirements, one that we knew about at the time, the other one just came in today, but as far as impact in the budget, shouldn't have a huge impact.
Appreciate it.
Yep. I want to say last year it was when this came out, it was 800 and something thousand, but I have those. If you look at that budget history, the spreadsheet on the budget history, you'll see what that number was, because it was a lot higher.
That was my only one.
Anyone else?
Yeah, may I? I think it's important for everybody to understand, especially if you look at the numbers, that there's certain dollar figures that can't really control. The uncontrollable costs every year basically goes down negotiations as far as for union contracts. And I think at the beginning of this season, I think it had brought forward that we always used to use a number at around 250, but the actual number was more like 365 to 400,000. So if you look at this budget, it pretty much reflects, if you don't, from you take the budget from one year to the next without changing a thing, basically equals the same amount of money as what this budget is. So there wasn't much added to it. How's that?
Yeah, we did use 250,000. I mean, I've been here 17 years, and we use it every single year except for last year, and that's Haley ran a new report and came in, and I mean, over the course of 17 years, if it was a 1.5 or 2% increase on the salaries, it would make sense that it would go up that much. But that is, you're right, that's historically the number we used, but it wasn't accurate.
The only way to reduce that would actually be looking at a different level of what you're expecting for services out of our education system.
Correct, because it doesn't, and one thing I didn't mention, but I did present, is that we did increase supplies across the board and maintenance by 10%, but it's less than, it's probably 8,000 maybe for the total.
Right.
It's not, it's,
Yeah, the controllable expenditures on supplies.
right, and those haven't been changed in 17 years.
Right.
So we did increase those by 10%, and especially the maintenance, because I know our buses and stuff, those numbers always come in. We're always overexpended in those lines, and we haven't done anything. And it wasn't a lot of money, but we've thought through the savings and insurance and stuff that we could increase that by 10%.
Thank you. We might be talking about a fix for the buses tonight, or at least some savings opportunities.
For the buses?
Yeah.
In regard to going to gas versus diesel?
No. Regarding the Public Works Director, is going to get some lifts. It's going to make maintenance more an in-house piece than going out.
Well, and one other thing we shared regionally is that because the buses, all the salt and stuff on the roads have really been corroding the underneath of the buses. I know that we talked about it regionally, but honestly, if somebody had a garage, or if we had the machines, the equipment to actually wash and power wash underneath of our buses, not only could we fix our own, we could probably make a lot of revenue because there's hundreds of buses in the area.
There's also a service where they can do some underspraying.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Also help your buses too, is make them a lot easier if you had a lift that you could actually lift the bus up in the air. Randy is here somewhere.
Yeah, Mr. Sear. I'm sure Mr. Sear is taking notes.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. We hear what you're saying about that.
Yep.
Yeah, but a busless buff wash station is probably in excess of $300,000. I know this. And
I've seen the ones that they have like the post,
yeah,
and you drive the bus in, and they manually like drive next to the bus.
So something like they're doing with trucks, you get it off the side of the site.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just worried about and it would work for your trucks as well. You can just literally go, and it hits the underneath of them. We have looked at those options. It wasn't in that range. I was thinking it was around 50 or 60,000 for one of those machines.
If you're under 250, you have my attention.
I honestly, regionally, we have talked about building a building and just doing it for.
That's why I'm living there.
Well, we've literally talked about it regionally, is building a garage and having a system in there that can wash buses. And I know.
Shared expense. I like what you're going. I like where you're going with this. All
We
right.
already actually have the space that actually would accommodate the idea for washing. It's just a matter of coming together and actually figuring out a proper plan for it. It's preventive maintenance. It's all it
That's
is.
all it is.
Well, I know we attend.
The longer we keep them, the longer we.
What's great about Lisbon is we're a part of WMEC, which is the Western Maine Conference, which is really where we fit in a little bit better. But we also attend school board and superintendent meetings over in Brunswick, Bath, Freeport. And that was one of the topics of conversation was how do we get the salt off of our buses to make them last longer. And so there are some serious conversations being had in the area.
And where we only have so many miles of roads, we're actually looking at going back to gas engines. They make a V10, I guess, that's supposed to be something else. And the emissions difference, a lot of our new diesel buses are constantly being fixed they always have an engine light or something. It's all emissions related. So moving to gas a lot of systems are going back to that. We're fortunate because we don't have that many miles of roads that we have to drive on.
Tracy, from your perspective, is anything that Rick didn't cover that give you the final moment before we open it up to the public?
One thing to note is that the Western Maine Collaborative is trying to get their designation as a regional center. Because of our makeup of town charter, we would have to join it after, or we would hold up that process. So that's what we will do when that becomes available to us, and that will save the penalty moving forward.
So we're going to eat the 90 even if we join after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, the service center piece at this point joining it now won't impact this next year's budget. It's going to be the year after. And we still don't know what that's going to look like. There is still legislation about that, removing that penalty.
You just asked you answered that question for me, so.
It was in, and then it was dead, and now it's back again.
Okay.
But know that we have done our due diligence in looking at with RSU. I mean, we still collaborate with anybody that we can that makes sense. But some of the other service centers didn't really fit a smaller community like ours as this one would.
And if my memory serves me correctly, the sticking point was that once you got in, you couldn't get out.
That was how
painful.
the law was written, yeah.
So
Since then, the writing or the lawyerese has changed as to how you could get out of those. But at this point, they're moving forward, knowing that we want to be part of that. It's just they don't need the same type of timelines and special elections and stuff as we can do it after the fact.
So if there's legislation in Augusta, we'll let them run with that, and we'll see where it lands. In the meantime, we know what we're getting into. And we knew what we were getting into long before we had this conversation today. It was just talk that was happening when these were first proposed. So
Right, and we were on level 2 of the service center agreement with RSU4, but their board felt very strongly against going into another interlocal agreement, that they wouldn't be around necessarily to answer to anybody why they joined it, and they know that by sending their kids here, they're saving more than their penalty. So, and we're that revenue's paying for our penalty. So it's a shame that we're doing what the service center would do, but we're not getting credit for it. But in the same regard, we're also it's kind of a wash.
Yep.
okay. Anyone else? Before I open it up. Okay. Thank you. I'd like to open up the public hearing at this time. Anyone who has anything they want to say about the school budget that's just been presented, feel free to step to the microphone. I would just ask that you give your name and what part of Lisbon you live in, and that would be it.
You got the broken one.
Wow,
it's my turn.
Now we broke the ice to the comedy piece. Let's move on to the actual.
Wow.
You okay
Anyone?
over there?
Anyone want to go ahead and speak on the budget as presented? Seeing no one, going once, going twice. I'm going to close the public hearing.
I figured you have to take numbers.
I thought so too.
No way.
So good.
No way.
Next item.
Keeping it
Is the
right.
school CIP public
Keeping it
hearing?
right. Nobody's going to yell about it.
Yeah, it's capital improvement fund. Yeah, you got it.
All right, most of the capital improvement items have not changed. You guys were provided a copy of that early on. So we still have identified areas in which we will keep on our, watch list. And a few of them that we have that one of the items is up for tonight, phase 1, that is in that plan. But it's kind of the status quo. We know we've identified kind of where we need to go and what we need to start plugging away at. I mean, that's what the plan is for. I think that over the years we've shown that we work off the plan and we do it, and might not do it all at once, but we do it in phases and we try to get the projects done.
And I just want to add one thing is on that. I know we were asked to create the plan, model it after what the town uses, and we're in the process of doing that. But that's
next year.
Yep.
I was going to say that was
Next year. It was
Yeah, I don't think any expectation was for this year. It's for next year.
No, we're good.
Any questions about the CIP? Anyone? Bueller? Okay.
Thanks for keeping it fun.
So you close the public hearing?
Yeah, I'm going to close public hearing on that as well.
Next item is audience participation and response for agenda items.
This time, if anyone would like to go ahead and step to the podium and discuss any of the agenda items, feel free to do so now. Anyone? Going once, twice, 3 times, and we'll go ahead and move on to the next item.
The next item is the consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to have any item removed may do so now. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered next. Seeing none, Order 2019-89 to approve the municipal accounts payable and payroll warrants. Number 41822019 for $9,955.38. Number 522019 for $21,217.90. Number 4252019 for $108,799.21. Number 572019 for $338,087.39. The school accounts payable and payroll warrants. Number 25 for $1,627.22. Number 1055 for $37,162.41. Number 26 for $1,529.67. Number 1057 for $305,558.74. Number 1054 for $320,360.39. Number 1056 for $11,799.32. Number 1058 for $11,623.26. Number 1915 for $117,334.78. The workshop minutes for April 9 and April 23, and the minutes for April 16 are renewal mobile home park licenses for the Town and Country Park, to set a public hearing on May 21 for Frank's special entertainment permit, and for Snappy Dogs Griddle, a new mobile unit at the Riverside Flea Market, to set the board registration hours for the June 11, 2019 election, and the renewal victualler licenses for the following: Angelo's, Aroma Joe's, Bootleggers, Canton Pearl, China Inn, Chummies, Big Apple, Coombs Mountford, Domino's, Dunkin' Donuts, Easy Mart, Flux, Food City, Frank's, Lisbon Golf, Lisbon Left Hand Club, House of Pizza, Mac Daddy's, McDonald's, Methodist Church, Railroad Restaurant and Pub, Rusty Lantern, Sam's, Slovak Catholic Association, the Smileys, and Subway, and Walt's Place. And itinerant vendor permits for Mac Daddy's, Positive Change Lisbon, and the Moxie Festival.
I make that motion.
Okay.
All in favor?
6-0, order passed. A lot of business done there.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a minute. I'll wait for the, I'm going to call for the next item. Once you catch
Have a
your breath.
drink.
That was a bit.
Might want to consider putting an oxygen tank in the budget.
Oh, hey. This isn't Twyla's first rodeo. She's worked up to this. She can do it.
Under Council Orders, Resolutions, and Ordinances, Order 2019-90, the Capital Reserve request for the School Committee Phase 1 installation for the athletic field lights.
Good to see
Right,
you.
so you all have the must-go item. So this is the phase 1. So the most important part is to get the footings here. The poles and the lights have been laying down now for 2 years, so to prevent them to start showing rust and those types of things, it would behoove us to get them up and erected. So the first part of the phase is the $27,475, and there is money that the boosters have raised, so that if there is additional crane work that needs to be done to get those erected, that there's money there to get that completed. But this is for the 4 precast bases, the 44 new lamps for the existing fixtures that are in front of Public Works, the new pole cross arms assemblies for the 44 fixtures, all the new wire harnesses, the lighting design as to where they need to kind of be put, and then the foundations and the freight to get them here. The Facilities Committee unanimously recommended to the school committee that we move ahead with phase 1 to start the project, and the school committee voted to move it on to you, which is why I'm here this evening, to ask that we use the money out of our capital reserve to start the phase. The next phase after that would be to get CMP. They have to bring the power all the way back to PWS to change it into 3-phase, and then bring that down to the area where they designate where the transformer would go. And then the underwire groundwork to get all the wires to said poles would be phase 3. There has been talk in the community regarding possible donations as well, but for right now we're operating as if we don't have that, and just moving on with our typical phase work. And if it comes to light, then it comes to light, and we're able to do more than we expect, then great. But for right now, we're just asking to use this part of the capital reserve for the first phase.
So the key here to get the bases up so that we can add, does this getting the bases put down also include getting those light posts up?
Up, erected, yeah.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
For public consumption, has there been any donations?
We've had, yes, with the passing of your
Speak to the camera in that regard.
with the
It's
passing
affected-
of Alan's mom, we did get donations in through the boosters of almost close to, I believe it was $1,400. And then the campaign by the boosters to do the signage with local businesses on a yearly basis. They donate a percentage to capital projects as well. And in there is, so that with the total of the donations is for $5,600, I believe. And the crane work was estimated at $3,000, but there's still discussions on whether or not we're able to get said crane company to just help us out and
Nice.
put it up. So
Nice, okay.
So is Amy still the point of contact associated with anything?
Amy Austin at the high school is still a point of contact to make any donations to the lighting project. Please make a memo on the check that it goes to that, made out to the Lisbon High School athletic boosters.
I think we could probably work on
That's a
getting
nice
that
plug. That's
word
all
out.
I was
Yeah.
looking for.
Yep.
Get that
Good job,
word
Alan.
out. Anyone else got anything else before we vote?
No.
All in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Next time?
Order 2019-92, the mutual aid agreement.
Did you skip over the bulletproof vest, Twyla? Did you skip over the bulletproof vest?
Chief, or
This
what?
is the mutual aid agreement
room here.
first. The mutual aid agreement with the
Oh.
sheriff's department.
Do you want to do the mutual aid first?
So that's
or
what
you
I heard her lead off with that. Whatever you want to do. You lead, chief. You tell us how you want to go.
Okay, we can do the mutual aid first. Mark Hagan, Chief of Police. We would like to enter into a mutual aid agreement with the Saginaw Sheriff's Department. Since we started here with Androscoggin and occasionally with Saginaw, the laws changed recently, so they want to actually have the council vote on this. But basically what it does is it covers us if we respond to help them, and let's say Topsom or more than likely Bowdoin, and it covers them if they respond to assist us. And I believe I sent you a copy of it. It's basically 4 pages of lawyer speak, which says that if they come here, they still pay their people's hourly wages and insurance and so forth. And if we respond there, we will be paying for any of our employees. It's basically just an agreement that says we'll help each other out.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. I'll second. We got any discussion before we move it on?
I would, if I may.
Yeah, please.
I think it is important, too, if our major arteries actually do abut the county on 196. And so, I mean, there's a sistering or a neighboring community. So, I mean, it is important that we have some
Makes
type
sense.
of agreement that we share responsibilities or at least help each other, right?
Yeah, it's a good idea. You know, we've had one, to be honest with you, with Androscoggin since I came here, and probably long before I came here. They've just never asked us to throw it by you folks, so we've just signed it off every year.
So Androscoggins, in that regard, it comes from the county budget that we pay taxes for, so there wouldn't be a mutual aid because they are obligated to respond, correct, in theory?
Sounds in theory, yes.
I'm going to be disturbed if we actually have a mutual aid agreement for
And we
something
have-
we're paying taxes
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
That's why I was asking, but this one makes sense.
Yeah, well, we do sign one every year, but yeah, when I talked to Sheriff Mary, he just, because they're a different county, wanted
Right, no,
to
that's
do-
why, yeah, it protects their interests. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Moving on, chief.
And so our second request of the evening is the Federal Bureau of Justice Assistance every year awards money to various federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies to assist with the purchase of bullet-resistant vests. The current contract that we had, or the current grant that we had, expires this year, so we have applied for the next grant, which would not expire until August 31st of 2021. So we're basically asking for permission to apply for, receive, and spend the money on the vests. The vests are just over $600 each, and what the grant will do is they reimburse us after we purchase them. They'll reimburse half of it to us. You have to give them a rough number of how many you think you'll need to buy. We're doing 10 right now. Vests are good for roughly 5 years. The majority of the officers here, vests were purchased in 2016. So through this grant, their vests will expire and we'll need to buy some new ones. And I didn't put it in here, but we generally buy them out of our one of the regular line item budget pieces for uniforms and then get reimbursed.
So if my memory serves me correct, it was like 6,200, so it'd be 3,100 cost, right?
Yes, sir.
I'll make that
No,
motion.
yeah, no brainer.
No brainer.
Second.
Which is budgeted, right?
Yep.
Oh, it's in this year's,
Yep.
that's soundbite for the window
Yeah.
again, absolutely.
No brainer. So I got a first, I got a second, all in favor?
Would it pass 6-0?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Chief.
I want to say hot topic, but that'd be awful
Well,
punny.
they need, the waiters in the wings need to come in. This is your item, yes.
Next item, sorry.
Order 2019-93, the fire truck bid award.
I like hot topics, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, we're about to get into some weighty stuff, so we might as well have a good laugh before it.
Nate LeClaire, Fire Chief. We received 2 proposals for the fire truck, and I'll explain to you a little bit how this went down, or how it came down to these 2 vendors. When we were approved to go through HGAC, we pulled the vendor list off HGAC for the approved vendors. There was 5 in New England that we could pull from. So looking at that, one of the big things that was important to us was service after purchase of the truck. So looking at that 5 vendors in New England, there was 3 vendors that offer service in Maine. Then looking at the general specifications that the committee is looking for, that eliminated 1 vendor down to 2. Some of the things they're looking for were things like stainless steel body and galvanized frame rails. One other vendor didn't offer those options, so it brought it down to these 2 vendors. The pricing came in. The price for the Pierce through Minuteman Fire Apparatus was $697,956. There is a prepay option, trade-in allowance, and a option to upgrade to a 500-horse motor. The other one was through E1. The dealer was Green Emergency Vehicles. That cost came in at $685,000 with a prepay option, the trade-in for engine 7, and the option to go with the smaller motor. The E1 brand was spec'd with a 500-horse motor, so the committee requested, and there was an option requested for the 450-horse motor. So taking advantage of all the prepay options, trade-ins, and the smaller motor option, the breakdown would have been, if all those options were chosen, Pierce at $669,956, E1 at $632. At this point in time, I'm not going to make a recommendation. I'm going to let the committee chair, Deputy Robitel, come up and explain what they came up with so you guys understand what their stance is. Deputy Chief?
Deputy Chief Bob Robitel. The committee, when they sat down, they wanted a couple things. One, they looked for the safety of how we design a vehicle and to make it last longer. Part of our problem up here, up north, is they rot out underneath before the tops rot off of them. We've done a lot over the years with stainless steel bodies and everything, but our frames go away. That's why I went with the galvanized frame rails and stuff. The committee also wanted to try and standardize the fleet. So basically right now we're running 2 Pierces that were purchased about 15 years ago now. And Pierce was one of the proposals that came forward along with the emergency E1. The E1 original proposal was missing a number of items out of it. I believe I forwarded a letter to the town manager and the council explaining the options that were missing out of the original proposal.
Page 99 in your packet.
I did follow up with the vendors, both of them, to explain the differences. The E1 proposal, the vendor there said that he would take and bring just about everything up that he had forgotten to put in at no additional cost. The Pierce vendor, really the only exceptions they took were actually listed on an exceptions page. We didn't have to go looking for the exceptions, which we did with the E1. The Pierce, we ended up having one exception, which is basically the same as the E1 exception, as the length of the hard suction lines. Other than that, the E1 was just about everything we had asked for, as asked for. So the committee felt more comfortable with, one, keeping standardization in the fleet, but also they felt more comfortable with the vendor themselves because they were up front with everything from the exceptions, the whole 9 yards. They had it listed up forward and everything. Also some background checks in reference to E1 versus Pierce. They felt that there was less problems with the Pierce trucks overall compared to the E1s, their personal feelings. And also talking with community chiefs that have used both apparatuses. What I will tell you is no matter which one you go with, you are going to find issues if you look. It doesn't make a difference what the vendor is. But overall, everything was explained out in the letter I sent out, and the committee overall feels that the Pierce was the better deal overall.
Mr. Chair? I'll make a motion unless there's dialogue for anybody that has questions.
I'll second it.
I'm going to recommend option number 4 to purchase the Pierce truck for total payment of $674,575 coming from the committee that they recommended, and Diane working with the financing to be able to make it underneath the allotment that went out for the referendum that was voted on last November.
Someone else? Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Bob, could you actually just give us a brief description of the committee? How many members and how they actually fall within the committee and how long you've been working on the process?
The committee originally was put together with the truck engineer for Engine 7, 2 members from E.T. Smith Hose Company, and 3 additional members from Lisbon Falls Fire Company, and myself as the chair. And we also had Peter Hunter in for his mechanical knowledge of the vehicles and stuff.
He actually helped you with the bid specs too, right? Is that my understanding?
Somewhat, yes, he did. This process has been ongoing now for probably 6 months or so, maybe a little bit longer. I don't know the exact date we actually started this.
Right.
Yeah, probably.
It got accelerated
as soon as
the November hit and we had a target date, it got escalated for time frame.
Yes, it did.
Right.
But it has been ongoing for a while. Engine 7's been due for replacement now, I think, for...
It was this year.
This year?
It was this
due
year.
for this year.
Yeah. Now, for the listening public in the corner, the fact that the reason it was in the November referendum is because once we make the commitment, either way we go with this recommendation tonight, it's 10 months build to actually get that into this community.
Correct. We don't expect to see the truck for almost a year.
Correct.
Which will also, soundbite for the corner as well, allow us one more budget cycle to put some more money aside.
Correct.
All depends how the options go, right? Pretty much.
Right.
With the option, the prepay option that, I mean,
Yeah,
it
and
pretty
the
much
point that
is
I'm
through
making,
this-
we
through
have
this budget cycle.
multiple options that are on the discussion. Diane's recommendation that speaks towards what went out in November to still be underneath that wire is best. The prepay, she has stepped away from it a little bit to be able to cushion that because we're going to pay additional insurance to get the decrease in the Diane.
If you decide with that option 4, my suggestion would be just a friendly amendment to your
Please.
motion, is to have half of the prepay come from the fire truck reserve and the other half come from the Dingley TIF reserve.
That was understood. Yes, that was an omission in my part. You explained that to me when I was in the office last week.
Yeah, I should have put that in my motion, but I didn't. I mean, in the recommendation.
And that's a key soundbite here is because the intent with anything from the council's perspective is to minimize the cost on the community for something we're having to finance. You know, we set funds aside specifically from the TIF to be able to minimize that, and the commitment for the last 3-4 years that we've been able to do to get the reserve back up is help to be able to mitigate that cost that we're not having to finance over 10 years.
Right. And after transferring this year's 75,000, which I've done, Nate, so you're not going to see it in your budget anymore, the reserve is up to 407,000.
They're all good signs for
Yep.
this purchase.
Some more questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Another item, both companies actually offered the $5,000 as a trade-in. I mean, is that a legitimate figure? Is that something that's actually, does it have any more value other than that if we were to sell it outright as an auction? Like, do we regular town equipment, or is that 5,000 actually a fair? It seems like a benchmark number for them. I mean,
It pretty much is a benchmark for them because they have to take it and trade it and then find someone to buy it.
and probably not haul it to where they want to go, just locally. They got to move it at that point. So.
They got to move it at that point.
Typically, the next phase for fire apparatus when it's removed from, unless somebody's got a dire need like Lewiston's in the last couple of years where they had the accident and they had to find one, that's a specific need for a short term. If it's not of that nature or another service that actually has a specific need, it's usually agricultural.
Exactly, farm related.
I was going to say, speaking in the past, our old engine 1 and engine 6, when we got rid of those, we pretty much had to give them away.
Yeah, so the $5,000 figure is a known, so it's not. And we could actually hold tight and actually get $300. I mean, I know that's not the actual number, but you know, I mean, it's we know what we're getting. We know what dollar values we have if
Right.
it's a 5,000.
And both vendors are separate evaluations.
Yeah.
They came to the same
Yeah, I
number.
mean, to me, it's like a benchmark. It's like, you know, we're going to guarantee to give you through this much if you trade in, you know, or if you don't, we're going to give you a $5,000 discount, you know. But
We got lucky with the tank truck. They're selling that thing for that 76 chassis for almost $8,000.
Yeah.
But this is again unknown.
Yeah.
And it could sit on it for a while.
If we were not going through this avenue, the only way I would accept it is to go through the Auctions International and try our luck. Well, at least what they've established with this is that anything above $5,000 you did better. But this is a surety
It's a known
to
number.
speak to something that was actually already put before the voters. That's the way I would approach it.
Yeah.
Not a big fan
Exactly.
of rolling dice for like maybe $1,500 more.
No, I just wanted to put out there because a lot of
Yeah.
people look at a
No, I agree with you
several
saying.
$100,000 vehicle being replaced by something that you're getting $5,000 for. So you mean it's just one of those things where you
Then there's putting up somewhere until you can get rid of it.
exactly.
Oh,
But you
put it in
need-
context. How old's the device again? So,
25 years old.
so 25-year-old, yeah,
But the other
25-year-old
part too
truck.
is the fact is this is 10 months away. You got a $5,000 payout for something that we actually retain in service until the other one arrives.
Yeah.
That's a key point here.
Yeah.
And you need that 5,000 in trade-in in order to get.
To make the numbers work.
Below the threshold that we were
Exactly.
authorized
If
with.
you didn't use that, then we wouldn't be
Yeah,
able
we'll
to
be
buy
able to
them.
get it, yeah.
Yeah. And one more question,
Sure.
if I may. The, I mean, in the past, I mean, this, one of the things struggling through this, sometimes you don't always, you know, you get high bid, low bid. You know, the town always, or state and federal government always kind of pushes for low bid type option, which, I mean, the town office is one of those things where we're looking around right now trying to fix money because we basically went with the low bid. Does the committee itself, I mean, I just want to assure people that even if the bids are pretty close, they're pretty compatible for the number. It's, you know, there may be a little bit of extra cost with the Pierce. I mean, looking at the numbers, it's hard to tell because everything's a moving target.
It is hard to tell when you don't have other users in there. But in my experience over the years, Pierce and E1 have usually been pretty close. These are the vendors the committee invited in, so they did their due diligence early on, looking at who was going to be out there to work. And both these brands are reputable products in the fire industry. So we're safe with either one in that direction.
Yeah. And the committee actually the whole committee actually voted for this, for the Pierce. I mean, it was
The whole committee voted for the Pierce.
Yeah.
I didn't vote because I was the chairman, so I'm the tiebreaker.
No, that's understandable. No,
There
just
was no need for a tiebreaker.
it's just nice to actually know. I mean, is the idea of using a committee to actually bring stuff like this forward is sometimes challenged, sometimes it's not. I mean, to me, it's important that we can fall back on people that are involved, that actually take the time to put together information to actually help us make a decision. You know what I mean? And again, sometimes the answers of the committee isn't always what we want to hear, but yet you still got to respect
Correct.
the committee for putting the time and bringing it forward.
Well, I mean, like I told the committee members, they're the ones that have to use the vehicle.
So to go back to talking about one of the factors for going with the Pierce was that we have 2 Pierce trucks already. And so looking ahead, obviously if we're looking to kind of standardize Next truck that needs to get replaced, we're going to be obviously looking to continue a relationship with Pierce, or are we? Because it's something we're not required to stick with. I mean, it makes sense to us. I understand if we're in the maintenance piece of it alone, we have the same vehicles, then they know what we're working with, and we can kind of start to estimate cost a little bit better versus all over the place.
The standardizing the fleet concept, that's a double-edged sword. I'm sure Council Rochelle could tell you that we have two Pierces that are 15 years old.
Yep.
The components on the trucks today are not the same.
Correct.
They've been upgraded, they've been changed, just like comparing your Chevy.
Not always made better either after
Yeah.
15 years.
And I guess that's where I'm driving at on this.
Always,
Yeah.
not always a good comparison. We do have 3 other brands in the department right now that we're maintaining. But it's a good way to go. If it's something the town wants to do and go at a standardized fleet, going with the HGAC program and having them vet the process. We don't have to go through this process again if this is the direction council wants to go. In 5 years, you want to buy a fire truck, you get approved by a fire truck, you pick up the phone and call up Pierce and have it done.
I think it's always still real reputable and just due diligence to actually make sure that we bid it out. You know.
And you would think they'd give us a little bit of discount if we just continue to buy from them as well.
VIPs, right?
Right? You would think, right?
That's what you want to do with a program like HGAC.
Correct.
Right,
Because
use their leverage
you have
now.
you vet it. I've seen, not necessarily in fire trucks, but in other products where what happens after a while when you have a concrete customer is they stop giving the discounts because you always come back. But with going through an HGAC program like this one, then they're going to vet it and make sure the customers are getting what that then is people best price.
When we go at the referendum on the next item and actually tell them we got a $700,000 budget, and the fact is it comes back at $699, I don't believe Pierce is giving you the best deal out there. So I would go at E1 for comparison to keep the market honest.
That's the only thing that jumped out at me that kind of made me get the eyebrow up in the air was that when I hear that we're using that 15-year-old trucks to kind of say we want to standardize to it, just didn't pass the.
Well, it's one thing that we don't always accept it with Randy's department. So why pick fire? You know, the fact is at that point it's usually cut and dry with public works or in police departments. With the fact is I don't care what it's standardized. You can put the bid specs out there. Who's got the low bid?
Right. You know, it's all about understanding that, to use your line, you are the folks that are actually in the trucks doing the work with it. So certainly your input is critical in any of the vehicles we're going to buy. But at the same time, want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the taxpayers, as I'm sure the committee does, and the chief, and everybody else involved does. So.
One last question.
Go ahead.
Specs are all done. Is the specs even considering, is the color considered and done, finalized? Is that something the committee actually went through? Not that it needs to be described or discussed tonight, but I mean.
I'll bring it up tonight. The committee decided, when this committee was first established, was several years ago under Sean Galpo as a planning committee for trucks in general. And one of the things that come out was the color truck. There's been this big fight with red and green for the past 40 years. So to give a little history on this, back in 2003, when we bought the 2 trucks, that fight came up again. And Chief Galpo threw out a colorful word and said they're going to be black and orange. And 3/4 of the entire fire department threw on the brakes and said they loved the idea. And that was both companies. The current manager at the time wouldn't back that one. So we fast forwarded, and the committee decided that any truck that has to be repainted, any trucks that be purchased, is going to be black over orange. It's still a bit of community pride, and to get rid of the controversy of the red and the green, which has been going on since 1976.
So you're going to try to phase them all out that way?
Well, that's why if you look at car 1, it has an orange stripe on it. The pickup truck has the orange stripe on it. So as trucks have to be repainted, that's the idea to do it. And if we buy new trucks, we want to go that direction, standardize the fleet across both sides of town.
Again, I want to bring a long discussion, but I figured I'd just ask.
Oh, it's
that
a good.
was actually brought up, you know.
To me, it's a good one because, frankly, we're at the point where the community doesn't care what color the truck that shows up is. It's that it's there.
And we're getting, I'm hearing excitement out of the people in the department on this change.
Frankly, nice touch.
You like that?
Yeah, that's good.
Like
I
that?
saw what you did.
He's been throwing them out all night.
I saw what you did there. Yeah. All right, so if there's no other discussion, I think we had to make an amendment, if I heard that right.
You have a motion to approve option 4 for the Pierce as recommended by the committee
I thought we talked about,
with the recommendation for financing from half from the fire department's reserve and a half from the Dingley TIF with the trade-in.
that's exactly what I meant.
Okay.
Well said, Norm.
I try.
Good
So
job.
now that we know that, all in favor?
Order passed 6-0.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Next item.
Order 2019-94, the vehicle lift purchase.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Randy Sear, Public Works Director. As you see in your packets, I've provided you with the cost for lifts for our trucks.
Where? Oh, in the packet on the table. So I see the oversight. Thank you, Randy.
It's close.
It's right there.
So as discussed before, these lifts are in dire need over at the Public Works Department. Not only for our own maintenance, but for maintenance of other vehicles that we take care of, fire trucks and everything else. Be a better way for us to get underneath the vehicles, see problems we probably wouldn't see if we're crawling around on our back. The other page you see in there is jack stands that were suggested that go along with the lifts for safety reasons. And those are rated to go with those lifts in case anything should ever happen. Those lifts, jack stands will be in place. It's an option. I think it's a good one, safety-wise.
Weren't we spitballing around when we were talking about this in the workshop at 36, and so that's not too far off the mark, and that includes the jack stands.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it for discussion.
Yep. So let's talk away.
A couple things. I mean, the idea of these lifts actually lift by tire.
Yep.
If you're going to do any maintenance on brakes, you'll need the jack stands anyways to be able to remove one. I believe that
That's
jacks
correct.
talk to one another, but you can actually bring one down to remove one tire,
That's correct.
one corner. So you would need a jack stand in order to do that in a sense.
That's correct.
It would just limit your ability to do any mechanical repair if you actually
If
help
you
out
have none,
tires.
that's correct.
And discussion we had earlier, if I may, what are the guys doing right now as far as are they just using a standard pressure washer to actually rinse trucks underneath after between storms?
Well, we use the 2-inch line over at the transfer station to rinse off the the bulky stuff, and then it comes. We bring it around the other side of the garage. We do pressure wash it, and also we're limited to do, but we have the rust protectant that we actually bought the applicator for, and we buy it by the 5-gallon jug. And in between storms, they go underneath and hit the frame. There again, we have the body up, and they get what they can. Having the truck on a lift, we'll be able to get all the frame in the areas, between the gas tanks and the front end and everything. And we can even do the fire trucks and the buses and
Everybody.
everything else, yeah.
That was going to be my question, is the idea, I mean, is that adequate, or, I mean, is it worthwhile working with the school department and the fire department to actually come up with, is there some type of undercarriage sprayer that actually Rick was talking about that would be more productive than the idea of just having a guy with a wand? I mean, I know you can get quite a bit done if you have the right equipment, that's all, but.
Well, the issue that we have is we only wash the vehicles out back of our department in between the transfer station and our public works. And it's where it drains. Okay, so what we have to be careful of is what we're actually washing off and where it actually goes.
So there's not a drain in the new addition?
No.
That was
So you're not doing.
No.
No, there's no drain in the new addition. So, I mean, to get up underneath there in the new addition, that we don't do that. We do it outside. Again, there's not a contained system for like an oil water separator. It's just a regular drain. So we have to be careful exactly what we do and how we wash and what we wash.
What would be the cost, actually? Is there floors sloped at all in that addition, or are they just flat?
No, it's flat.
It's flat.
Yeah, and it wasn't designed to have a drain.
Yeah, I mean, it
Would be nice. I mean, the other side of the shop has one, but then there again, you need a catch system.
Well, that's it. I mean, it would be interesting to just look in to get a cost what it would actually take to put a proper drain separation system in there. The only way, I mean, during the winter, it's It's the worst time for school buses and fire trucks, but at 10 below zero, no one wants to be outside rinsing off trucks. I mean, it just doesn't happen.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And when they talk about other communities having a problem, they're looking for, the problem is a place to come in that's semi-heated, that you can actually have a technician that actually do a job, or a mechanical device do a job that you got to let the trucks actually dry off a little bit before you stick them outside, because if not, you just end up with a big ice cube. So,
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, I don't really see us. I know I don't like rinsing stuff off when it's 10 below zero and you're freezing up as you're doing it. So,
See, that's why when like in between storms, what we're doing now is when we actually do wash it and pressure wash it, we let it dry off. Then we put the fluid film to it. The guys will raise the body in the shop, and then we're able to put the fluid film to it. Gives it a little more protection. But what I've seen since I've been here in February is that not all the truck gets it, just the frame when they pick the body up in the rear end, and it's quickly done. Looks great from the outside, but
out of sight, out of mind, it never bothers it, right?
Right.
I guess if we would actually think about, again, this is beyond the jacks, but it does fit with the jacks. You're not going to bring the jacks outside and lift the vehicles out. And so the jack's going to work in one area and be in the bay.
addition.
In the addition. So I mean, I think it would be our due diligence to actually see what it would take to get that. So I know it's digging up stuff, but the idea what it would take to actually put a drain in there to a decent separation system as far as for sanding.
The catchment system can go outside into like a cistern, which could get pumped out. And the Turnpike Authority does have that, and people come in like Clean Harbors and they take it out.
Yeah.
But we try to limit the amount of oil that gets in there.
I mean, I do believe the idea if we were, not that we don't, but if we were actually rinsing off and getting salt and calcium off the vehicles, that we'd see an extended life.
Oh, absolutely.
Most of the expensive mechanical repairs during winter, I believe, are not so much for what I call hard items, but actually electrical items that, if you see the way they put the anti-lock brake modules, you would think they put them inside a nice, dry, weather-tight area. They stick them on the bottom of the frames where everything, and that's where just, if something's going to die during the winter, it's usually a mechanical issue. It's electronics that get eaten up by the salt, and the only way to do that is to keep it rinsed off if you can.
Exactly what happens, yep.
Again, just going with the school department's recommendation of the idea of just washing buses, it's a no-brainer. It's just basically the idea of finding a place to be able to properly do it. So if we can, I mean, again, you don't want to be spraying a bunch of salt on the jacks either, but yet, if it's maintained properly, it'd probably be worthwhile. It'd pay itself off in a number of years.
That garage is long enough, even if a bus is in there, I mean, it's jacked up, you can curtain off the rest, the other half that we, if we had another truck in it, so nobody's getting wet on that end, you can just run a curtain across and you'd have it no problem.
In the new addition or
the new addition?
New addition, yeah.
Because we got the tall ceilings in there.
$4,000 for jacks is cheaper than the equipment we're putting
Right,
up.
and the investment of if we decide to go ahead and put in a drain and a catch, that investment up front is going to be paid off by all the money that we're going to save in the longevity to get the trucks back.
Correct.
And jacks, just now, question, got a devil's advocate here. What's the life cycle, lifespan expected on these things? Is there any sort of?
Well, we've got the bumper jacks now. They're over 25 years old, and there's nothing wrong with them. Okay. But they only lift 3.5 feet high. That's it.
Right. So I'm just thinking that it's a pretty hefty investment, but I mean also understanding the life cycle and what how they go and what sort of maintenance they hit the 5-year mark and they go right down the hill or.
I just know that Don's Automotive bought a used set that were, I don't know, I can't remember how old, like 15 years old or so, and
still going strong.
Still going strong.
Hydraulics usually maintain over the years. It's electronics that you don't have in the old bumper jacks that you actually have with these that will catch you.
Okay. All right. Well, good enough. That answers my question. That's what I wanted to know. So where we at? Anybody else got any other questions?
You did.
Yeah, how many other bids did you have?
This is right straight from the supplier. Every other bid, even if I talk to Traction or I talk to Napa, there's no way they can touch that price because they have to buy it and then they mark it up. This is the only dealer, the only supplier that is direct, and there's no middleman.
Yay.
Yeah, so you're buying factory direct.
Anything else?
Anyone else?
Okay, all in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catch system too soon on this budget?
I mean, if we're here,
Can you put an ask into Dennis to see what it would actually
Drain and a
It's
catch.
going to be intrusive, there's no question about it. There's some digging and some moving around. But
a drain and a catch, I guess, is what we're talking about, right?
Randy, where's the water go right now? They rinse in between the buildings. It's no magic. What's the rinse into the building pretty much? I mean, there's not really much of a drain back there either, is there? Or?
There's not a drain, but there is a catch basin there.
Yeah.
But it's been covered. So what happens is we flood out that area, and then we have to wait. We can only do like 2 trucks at a time before it starts creeping in the doors. So we just got to wait, especially in the wintertime where there's
Everything freezes. Yeah.
nowhere for it to go.
Yeah.
So we're fixing a problem then.
Oh yeah, you'd be fixing a huge problem.
If you put a drain in a catch basin, absolutely.
Let's get some numbers. Let's get some numbers.
Yep.
And we'll see. And the best thing about it, we actually heard earlier, we may have a partner. So the thing would be is to see where the sewer would lay, maybe on helping with that if they can actually use that to wash the buses, right? I mean, it's a possibility, if nothing else.
Yep, absolutely.
The capital.
If you're not going to get them on the capital, you're going to get them on the cost of doing it.
It's a great problem to have if this thing blows up. We start getting people coming hand over fist saying we want to give you our money to clean our buses or vehicles.
By the time they get back to their town, they've already got that more salt back there, but it's okay.
Nice thing is they just park right across the street. So
Other towns is what that's
oh, the other towns.
Locals.
That's right.
The locals. Hey, they'll be clean as heck from here to there, though. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, Randy. Next item.
Order 2019-95 Planning Board Goals.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
Evening, councilors. You received our goals back in February. Good news is we've been able to almost check off one thing. The child daycare is going to, our changes to the ordinance are going to be coming to you at the next meeting, so we can actually take that off of our, in the past 90 days, what we've accomplished, but we're also adding access management there. And our budget, again, was presented very early back in January. It's less than last year. We definitely strongly encourage the council. Hopefully you still have the memo that I sent you back in February, how much we appreciate having a planner on staff. I think we need the benefit of someone who is experienced and a professional in that field, because the planning board, as hard as we work, and we have spent a lot of time, we're not professionals in that field. We don't have an education in that, and we're, local residents trying to do the best we can for the town. And the one thing I'd like to add to the goals is that we not end up in any litigation. And I think that's why you need professionals to advise us and to help us. So I think that's about it. Dawn, anything that you would want to add? Consider him more my co-chair than even vice chair, so you know that.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr.
Do we
Chair,
want
sorry.
to?
Either one. It's going to come right back to you guys
Okay.
anyways, Karen. The fact is, where this item actually is on the agenda tonight is, it was a pretty sizable discussion at last year's budget workshops associated with the cost associated with the $21,250 for the ask for the planner.
Mm-hmm.
So we agreed at that point in time to allocate that funding, knowing that the primary for the majority of last year or this budget year was going to be the comp plan, to afford you the resource to be able to get through the year and a half to be able to do so. So for the listening public, if I'm not seeing it right here, could you just go through that list of goals? Because what I don't want is when we revisit the items that we've parked in this year's budget reviews, that wouldn't becomes the first target associated with that, because it will be a price tag that if we don't have an adequate understanding of what that's going to be, I know that there are people up here that feel differently about what that resource would be better served with what we're trying to express.
Okay. Well, it is an expense. It is an expense,
Sorry,
absolutely,
Twyla, you're
to
better
the
at
town.
that.
Yeah, as I say, you're working
I'm
on it.
lightheaded.
Okay. The comp plan has been submitted to the state.
Yes.
Just in the past, few days. Ben, the contract planner, has received back comments from the state. He is making a few changes, and we plan on reviewing them at our meeting on Thursday. So we'll have more information for you all on Thursday. But I think we've done really well with that. But the comp plan is by no means all that the town planner, in my opinion, opinion does for the planning board. And again, in the past, even, 18 months, 2 years, the town has had a real resurgence in businesses and residential, and we're doing subdivisions, and these are things that we don't want to make mistakes with. Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but we don't know what we don't know. And we do not have educations in municipal planning. That's why we have a town manager, because of her expertise. We, have people that the town pays for their expertise. And again, I believe, according to the budget, we've had to increase our legal fees this year. Well, I would hate to have to, the planning board, because of an innocent error, or, ignorance, and I hate to make that sound, facetious. It's not ignorance, it's unknowing, and that isn't an excuse. Maybe, Cassie, who has a little bit of legal experience, could give us a little more on that, but we don't want to make mistakes. We want to do things right, and the town is growing, but yet we don't want to, burst our bubble or make any errors, and I think having a planner who is a professional in that field. Dennis knows quite a bit of the information that our planner does, so I'm not underestimating, but Dennis is very, very busy, and he has the job he does. So I really think that the planner is totally invaluable.
Not trying to redirect, I've sat through the planning board discussion associated with what you guys had for goals. Is it in the packet here tonight for the rest of the council?
It is not in the packet, this one, but I think it was actually emailed out to us.
I don't know if this was forwarded to you. I didn't see it in the information that I looked through. Granted, again,
the only reason I ask is just from that to be able to get an assessment of where people want to land on that. Do you have a copy of that goals right there anyways, Don? Just for the listening public, Karen, that's all.
Absolutely.
By all means.
There's your memo forwarding it.
So.
Yep, I forwarded it to all, actually it went to,
Okay.
I believe, to
address the standards associated with accessory dwelling units, add standards to tiny homes, create a land use ordinance for consolidation of Chapter 62. Chapter 62 is what again, Don?
All the
site plans.
Site plans.
Site plan, subdivision, and zoning ordinances, and that's probably the biggest.
That's going to be time consuming.
Yeah.
Very.
And I remember you guys talking about that.
Yes.
Complete the comp plan, which is done, and then the next phase associated with the waterfront area planning in Beaver Park as well.
And we understand Beaver Park is under the...
It's a moving target, but it covers associated with the Conservation Commission and a variety of boards and other committees that we actually have, so it's a resource shared by both, is the point that I was making.
The other one that's not in there is the access management. We had intended to add it at the end, and because it's been a thorn, we have the access management, but it's not fitting very well. And actually, Ben's been working on that now.
One of the things that I would say from a liaison perspective is the fact is I've heard this, I've sat through their meetings, and the fact is what they are presenting to you is like Dennis with public buildings. You know what you're getting for that 21 grand because they would like to have the planner's assistance to be able to work towards those goals now that the comp plan is coming off that list.
Yes.
Is the point that I would make.
Right.
Could I add a comment?
Absolutely.
I've said this before to whoever would listen. I feel that when we have a codes enforcement officer and a planning board, we have about half of what we need, unless we want to go back about 12 years or 7 years or however long it's been. Way back when, the planning board was more a function of what you could approve for site plans that were already existing in the system. It wasn't forward-thinking at all. And it was kind of a, how do we do this? It really was a, how do we get around the ordinances to get something done? And that's not the intention and you can probably speak to that more.
Yeah.
Yes, I would completely agree with Don's statement that it was very much reactive. We were just get an application and we'd basically rubber stamp it most of the time. There was no real thought of what do we want the town to be like. There wasn't really something that we had the expertise to really do.
There's a lot of opinion-based decisions.
The thing that I would say, too, about a planner, we've had recent evidence that we as a planning board, and even as codes enforcement officer, as good as he is, may not have totally understood how a particular development should have worked.
I can't really say too much about it here, but it's an ongoing issue, and our planner provided some other look at it from a planning standpoint that was probably, whether it needs legal advice or not, that's another thing, but it was another standpoint that we should look at to make things right. And that's part of the value we feel as well.
I think it's an investment we can't afford not to make.
Mr.
It
Chairman?
is.
Yep. And as always, me and Don always have heated discussions, not heated, but very how would I say it?
Animated.
The
Passionate.
passionate,
a good word, too.
and I do not sit through as many planning board meetings as Alan, but I do sit through enough to actually understand the scope of it. And one of the things and just to be fair, me and Don have actually had a discussion about the planner yes, planner no, role of planner when it came on and what it is today. And but just being a council person, questioning numbers. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to, and justifying what the tax dollars are spending. I agree. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, our planning board members are very much like us. You work all day, you come, and it's nice to have someone that actually has the information for you, so you checks and balances. I respect the planning board. They do a lot of work, and their recommendations I would actually move forward with without a question. And even though Don probably thinks I just like to beat them up, but with that being said, it'd be nice moving forward. I mean, I don't think we ever planned on this initially when it came on. Amanda came on for this to be a forever going thing, but yet there's still enough. I wouldn't call it low-hanging fruit. There's enough things out there that still need to be addressed that I think the planning board could use some assistance with. As we did last year, in last year's budget, we're trying to refine the idea of how the time gets used and what it is for. And as Don mentioned, the idea of legal, some of my recommendations, only from sitting from the outside, because it's easy to make comments sitting in the back of the room, as everybody knows, is moving forward as we look as long-term, is the idea of seeing how, with the example Don had mentioned, the idea of looking at a plan and having different opinions, but really needing to know the legal guidance of it, is the idea of reaching out for AvCog. There are state entities that we belong to that we really don't do a whole lot with, and I think we really need to figure out over time if these are resources that we can use and depend on, and if they're not, why they aren't, and if it's worthwhile having them there, and if they're not being used and they're not really worth it, what are we doing actually? What's their role in our local town? So I think moving forward, I think we need to actually try to use all our resources. I don't like the idea of spending more legal fees than we need to, especially if there's other resources we can get a second or third opinion from. So honoring the recommendation of the planning board with their goals. I mean, I would support the idea of this year moving forward with the planner, with the idea that, we just every year look at the idea of, time management, what the projects we're working on, and trying to just use every resource for the best of our ability.
Karen and I have talked too, and I think that we might be able to better focus some of that over the next year. We've been trying to figure out sometimes where the role is. If sitting at a planning board meeting is the way it ought to be, or not, or should there be separate meeting where somebody else is more involved in what we're really trying to do than sitting in a planning board meeting. So we have some discussion to do that and work on that with both codes and planner to kind of, in many towns, as you probably know, some that are a little bigger than us, nothing comes to the planning board that hasn't been to both operations, and there's sort of semi-agreement with the applicant before you even get to the planning board, so that the discussion is really knowledgeable at the time you're at the planning board. No, we're not a big town, and I don't think we're going to be a big town anytime soon, but that kind of input, give and take on both sides, is valuable.
Yep. And just to be fair, too, I mean, it's last year when we were looking at not restructuring this, but actually getting a better handle on what this is, there was some question. The idea was Diane's responsibility to actually monitor it, or the planning board, and it is kind of a challenge because the planning board is a self-entity in a sense. It's actually a division of the town that kind of works on its own. It isn't something that Diane actually, directs. So it's really hard for her to be really on the idea of directing the planner that actually is working with the planning board. So I think that there is going to have to be a lot more weight put onto the planning board to actually make sure that those dollar figures are used, those times and money allotted is actually used wisely and that we're trying to use other resources for a year to get in the predicament if there is a year that we do not bring on a planner, that we actually have the resources or know the resources that we can use without actually, overworking you folks.
That does scare me a bit, not having a planner,
Yeah.
to be very honest. And I can say in the past 7 years that we've had the planner,
Yeah.
John has been chair 4 years, and I've been chair 3 years of the past 7. And we both fully appreciate the value of the town planner. And I know other people might not see it. But I think it is definitely in the town's best interest. And I'd love to see a full-time planner, but I know that's...
The hardest thing is it's
rainbow
good economics right now where we're seeing things happening. You can actually you can justify it. If we go back 8 years when there wasn't any interest in anybody doing subdivisions or planning houses, you know what I mean? At that point in time is what I'm talking about. The idea there may be a time where you have to you need to make business work. So.
Let me play devil's advocate here, just because we're talking about a bunch of great things, and I'm going to use Don's quote just from a few moments ago. We're not a big town, and we're not going to be a giant. We're never going to be a city, if you will. No. That being said, having the, I guess somebody that was working on and doing that planning for us was fantastic, and it's helped us grow to where we're at right now. That being said, if we're not going to grow at a continued rate, how do we justify that expense? That's the first piece of it. I understand where you're going to go with this, but just hear me out for 1 second. I think I understand where you're going to go with this. So that's the way I'm sitting there on the other side of this. If I have to say, how do I justify that expense? Because we went with somebody before and helped us kind of get all these plans in place, help us to be able to work on different subdivisions and issues that maybe we didn't ever really tackle before in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. So here we are now. We have those things in place. We have the comp plan complete. Is the sky almost? Yeah. Is the sky going to fall if we don't? That's my ask.
Don't know.
I think the role of the planner can be to help us know what we don't know, or to figure out the unknown, or however the wording goes. But we don't know whatever situation. When the last one came up, there were a lot of questions that none of us thought of, and neither did Dennis. And so that role has become a lot more important. And no, I don't think we're going to be a big town. But then again, there's nothing going to keep us from growing like we should grow.
So let me go the other side of that too then. Towns similar to our size in this state, how many of them have part-time or even full-time planners?
Some of them, I don't know the exact numbers, but there are some that are contracted.
Right.
They work. All they do is work for one particular town part-time.
Yep.
And there are towns in the area that have a person that is economic development and planner.
Yes.
Okay.
Bath experimented with that.
Ours has contracts with multiple communities, just for that reason.
Yeah.
Yes, because
that's how he makes the economy of scale work for him.
The city of Bath, which is not a huge population, I can't remember what it is, had a planner and a planning department person, and the codes came under it, and anyway, there was a couple of people down there. They experimented with both roles for one person.
I thank you for putting it out there. It's more about public consumption and understanding where we're going, because we're doing a top-level cursory kind of. So I think it's important we do a deep dive a little bit and talk about in relation to around us and in relation to what it is that. So we've done all these things, and the town's growing. So if that's the case, can't we just be status quo and flatline? I think that'll be the question that'll come out. And so I think it's important that we bring it to the forefront, shine a light on it, so that we can understand from a planning board perspective, with your experience, what it was like without, what it's been like with, and why you feel the value of continuing on with is important. So thank you.
Mr. Chair? Yeah. One of the things that came out of the discussion, and Don reminded me of it, is the fact that we landed at the last year in the budget discussion that quarterly reports from the town planner, and the fact that it is also a resource available for other areas other than the planning board, specifically economic development was brought, the LDC, other committees of that nature in that regard. What I would have, when knowing that these folks here actually sit on multiple committees, is actually best directing what is our planner's best use of his time, because is it always sitting at a planning board? I mean, they're questioning that.
Yeah.
The fact is, so being able to plug and play to be able to get the best value for the buck, I would focus on what is actually being said on the quarterly, looking at what they're looking to accomplish next year and what needs to be added to that. Because there's nothing in here that has anything to do with economic development. There's nothing that benefits the LDC other than conceptually. Is take this and add to it before we actually get into that discussion. And the question I would ask now is, knowing that this has been parked as an item for a future discussion on the budget, is there anything that needs to be brought to that discussion for Tuesday to make an informed decision on where that lands from here?
Yeah.
I have what I need because I know what they're saying, but I'm hearing what they've been telling me all along.
So I think that we'll try to get some more detail ready for next Tuesday as well.
What do you want her to bring? Is what I'm asking.
Oh no,
Diane receives monthly reports and.
Yeah, we've seen the reports. We have the goals. What else do we need? Is what I'm asking.
Monthly time sheets.
Yes, she gets all that.
Yes, he gives those to Diane, and it shows the meetings he attends and the hours. I mean, it's not real explicit, but it does give the meetings. Is it quarterly or monthly?
No, he does it quarterly.
Quarterly.
Yeah, I thought it was
He does it quarterly, just
Seems like it's every month.
same as Lisbon Emergency and
Well, the
other
bills are monthly.
managers'
Oh,
reports.
bills are monthly, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So,
I was losing my mind.
so I remember when we transitioned and when the discussion to bring him in, there was a little bit of chafing around the dollar amount, if my memory serves me correctly. So how are we going to remain competitive, or is this going to be a constant creep that we're going to have to talk
Well,
about?
in 7 years, it's creeped what, $1,500?
Well, I'm not saying that 7 years. I'm talking about when we brought him on. I know that there was a talk about salary, and there was a little bit of concern there. So I'm wondering if, when the honeymoon period is over, is it going to start to creep up?
I think we have to state that year by
He
year.
was actually fishing out there, or exploring is a better word, to see what function the town wanted from him. And there were some more expensive options, which the town didn't do. But
Because Amanda did not raise her rate at all.
We were lucky.
For 4 years.
We were very lucky.
Yes. So, and then, like I said, I believe it's only been $1,500.
Well, and to Ben's point, the 5th year, he actually kept it at her rate, too.
yes, he did.
Yes.
I want that point. He kept it at her rate, exactly.
So that's exactly my point then. If we're talking about we've had a flat rate consistently along the board, as long as we're not going to see something that's going to take off and go one more selling point.
But we're not doing a multi-year.
No, this is year by year. Which is why we have this conversation, right.
But I think it's important that we state that it's year by year.
Yes.
If you could view it as there's a flat number of dollars to spend, no matter what you do,
right?
That's it.
Me spitballing ideas, the fact is if there's anything that needs to be added to goals, you have it from the planning board's perspective, but there's nothing on here from economic development's perspective or any of the other committees to be able to augment this, to make an informed discussion about what he's going to spend his time on. That's the point that I would make.
So that's what we're going to need.
Yeah, well, I think.
So you need that from staff? You need that from here?
We need that from staff. So we're going to need some insight, especially from the ED.
Okay, so let's hand this down to our town manager and see if we can't get departmental input to add to that, to be able to help Diane pitch that to us next Tuesday.
But with that being said, you have the information you need for next Tuesday.
I do.
As set,
I know
right?
where I'm going to land because I'm going to support these folks because I'm their liaison, but I want to make sure that I'm one voice on the entire budget.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear. It made it sound real easy, but the idea of the especially for, and I'm not going to speak for them, but the Lisbon Development Committee or the ED, it'd be very difficult in a short period of time to come up with actually realistic goals that you'd want to keep. But the idea of the discussion being open, that Ben is not just, a sitting in a planning board type of meeting.
He's not a planning board only resource. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think any one of us questions that Ben's commitment and what he's done. So I know in talking about a position, it's very, very easy to forget that that position has a face and name and the contributions that they've made. So I don't think any one of us questions what he's brought to the table, what he continues to bring to the table. But I think that, like you had mentioned earlier, we're just trying to vet all because we're looking at each department the same way. So when we see these, and to Alan's point, if we don't have this discussion, right now and it just kind of glides through, this will be one of the first things that ends up, what are we doing here? And if we don't have any real decent understanding, I know Alan would be able to advocate because he's going to bring what he has as a liaison, but it still doesn't take much if we don't all have that information.
Is anybody going to be at the Thursday meeting? Are you going to be at the
It is my intent, yes.
Great. Because Karen and I are slated to have a conversation with Ben prior to that meeting, of which we're going to be discussing our issues, but we also will probably discuss this slightly, get some more input, so that might be helpful.
What time are you meeting with him?
6.
We're
Right
meeting at
before.
6, but
All right. To answer your question, I will be there.
Okay, great, thank you, Council.
maybe
Anybody, anything else?
good, I'm going home.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you guys for coming in.
Don, you
Appreciate
got to
it.
get up pretty soon, Don. Time to go to bed.
Next item.
Order 2019-96, the bookkeeper position.
So, in light of some recent developments,
It's ominous.
yeah, in light of some recent developments, and I won't be too cloak and dagger here, we've gotten some additional candidates for the finance director position that we feel pretty strongly that we can at least interview on. And the idea when we were talking about this position, the bookkeeper position, was that we didn't know if we were going to have a short-term fix, and we needed one because we didn't want to lose any ground. So I am inclined to right now table this bookkeeper piece until we get through our next week items, then put it into the next agenda, if everybody is of that mind.
I agree.
But for the discussion purpose, the fact is that is another item that has actually been parked for next week. Is there anything going into that we want Diane to bring to the discussion? Because I'd prefer not to have it be just a low-hanging fruit that gets canned, because I know what a value of a bookkeeper is, but what we're actually missing in cutting it maybe get lost on the public eye.
May I?
Yeah, please.
I mean, this position going into next year, I mean, it's been discussed that the dollars had already been put aside for this that would have actually carried this to the next year budget. So it isn't a question whether or not we're actually allocating money in the next budget for this position. It's already there.
Yeah.
So the question isn't the idea of is it a decision for next year's budget or not. It's the idea of
Whether we continue with the 85 or actually hiring a full-time person.
yeah, and after, again, this is my own opinion, after the last circumstance we're in, I would be very hard-pressed to actually hire a temp and train him and to have him leave.
That's where I'm at.
I couldn't agree more on that. I think we also had another development, too, if my memory serves me correctly, where we might be getting some help to at least keep us.
In the interim, till we get a finance director.
So
Would that be coming out of that dollar values that we have put aside for
Won't
that?
cost us anything.
It won't be, yeah, okay.
If you want to speak to that.
Yeah, right, so the R.H.R. Smith, our auditor, has offered to provide us some help a couple of days every other week to keep up with actually to help with the reconciliation between Trio and Munis, the accounts, the reconciliation between the town and the school, which I don't believe any of that's been done yet, and it's mainly to keep us on track because we've come a long ways, the town and the school, in the last 3 years, and we don't want to backtrack, and also to keep the bank recs up. There's just no way that myself and
no
staff can
additional
do
cost.
that.
For no additional cost. It's covered
Yep.
out of the scope of what he is actually doing
Exactly.
under the current contract.
Yes.
So simple peace of mind here, everybody knows that it's talking about maintaining status quo while we're still continuing the search to get the best candidate possible in the finance director role, and understanding we're supporting staff, and that's the most critical piece.
But I also want to stress that bookkeeper role is going to be more of a role, it will help finance, but it is going to help some of these other departments. We actually need that person. We're that busy. We've got too much work on too few people, and we're going to lose some more good people if that continues. I can't stress that enough.
And I think that
everybody is worked over the max, including myself right now.
Is it, may I?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Is there any harm or foul in the idea of actually posting this position to see what we actually get for candidates? I mean, if you post something, you usually do it for what, a 2 to 3 week period?
Oh, yeah, if we posted this now, we wouldn't get somebody in place before July 1st.
So in
That's
that case,
the main reason why I wanted this on the agenda. The longer we wait, the longer it's going to take to fill the position.
So in theory, we could actually post it to see what we actually get for candidates. And then in the meantime, we could actually do the interview process and see. And just because we actually put it out there and get people sending their resumes doesn't mean that we're actually hiring for the position, right?
My thought process on this was that, if we have a finance director to use the Bill Parcells line, she's going to shop for the groceries. It's going to be the bookkeeper is going to fall under the finance director's umbrella, right?
Right.
And that was my only thought process. And I understand there's a sense of urgency around this, and I'm not inclined to wait too long because of want to support the staff, and it's not sustainable as it is right now.
No, it's not.
It certainly is not. So I think that if we, to your point, Fern, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting the position out, and I could support putting that out. I'm just not inclined to jump on the first bookkeeper that walks through the door.
No, I'm
That's
just wondering if
that's exactly where I'm at on this. I know that we have a very succinct need, so I want to make sure that
I'm
we're
going to play devil's advocate there then. I, in good conscience, am not going to put something out that we're not prepared to pay for. If we're not going to finance the position come July 1, I wouldn't put the damn ad on the
It's already
street.
there, though. We already have the money available for
No,
the position.
No, it's
No, I
in
know
the
what you're
budget.
saying. You're talking about, I know what you're saying.
If we're not committed to actually hiring this position next year, I wouldn't put the ad out.
Do the following year, you mean?
Yes. Period. Because I'm not inclined to actually. Everything that we've been talking about for goals since January is the fact is retaining people. The fact is you're going to straight face actually put an ad out there to hire somebody with the shelf life that may not be there in the following year. That's not fair.
I guess it would come down to the idea of just, as we talked to Denny's positions earlier, you mean the number of staff that was in the finance department versus what's there now. And at the end of the day, are we actually just hiring extra, or are we actually just getting back to the staff level that we once were at? You mean?
That's a fair argument.
That's a fair. So
That's a fair argument.
I think I'd have to lean to Diane saying, hey, look, we originally had 3 people in this department. Right now we have 0. So the idea of hiring 1 doesn't get us where we need to be. Hiring 2 doesn't. But hiring 2 is going to be better than not hiring anybody at all. And that's whether it's a police argument, fire department, or whatever.
Department.
It's the idea of the department. If it was once justified to have a 4-person staff, and we're actually only get staffed half of it, we can't expect to have the same results we once had. So, I guess we have to, at some point in time, we actually have to look at Diane and actually take her recommendations, whether or not, what's going to take this role. 2 things. I mean, I agree the idea it's nice for a finance director to come in and actually be able to control his department, but at the other hand, we don't want to hire the ultimate finance director, have him come in and be understaffed and say, why did I land here? I mean, I could be somewhere else. I mean,
No, I
and I
understand.
think someone else, anybody, if I was actually interviewing for position, the first thing I'd want to know is who my staff was and how many staff do I have and what their roles are. And if someone comes in and they say, what's my staff? And they're saying,
You're it.
you. I mean, that would be a challenging role. So the idea of release, again, I think we have to get to the point of Alan's point, deciding whether or not the position's needed or not, and make that just a firm yes or no at some point in time. If it is, then we post it.
Well, to talk about that a little bit more, what I want to know is that I'm hearing you say that there's a lot more work that needs to get done. Have we really outlined what that is? Is it all just straight bookkeeping work? Is that it? Or is there other work that is being absorbed right now across other departments that could fall under this umbrella? Are we just hiring for a bookkeeper, or are we hiring?
No, it's not just going to be a bookkeeper.
Okay.
No.
Well, then, I think it's critical then if we're going to put that out there for a post, that we're looking for them to take on other duties and responsibilities, then we outline that in a role that we put together, and that may not just be a straight bookkeeper kind of gig. We might want them to wear a few hats and carry different loads in different departments.
That's my intent.
Well, I think we need to spell that out then, because I think when it comes across as the bookkeeper, it just sounds to me just like that. Somebody's going to reconcile things and then not have any other responsibilities or duties.
And you're going to get that from a reaction when you put the ad out there.
Right. And we want people who are going to be diverse and understand that I have these skills, but I'm also going to be required to, because this description is very clear.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to be able to get the support you need and not just have somebody who comes in thinking, well, I
Well,
get the
originally,
bookkeeping
when this came to
unlocked,
council from Lydia, it was a finance assistant.
Right. Right.
Staying in finance full time, right?
That's right, and that covers anything in finance, anything from payroll to billing, anything.
And
So
the
then
idea
I like
of
Yeah,
that
I like.
Yeah, I like that title.
the idea of a bookkeeper in a sense, and again, when you're saying you're actually used in different areas, I mean, when they're in
We
different
have to.
but when they're in different areas, they're actually doing the accounting type of thing also, because there's
Exactly.
accounting in every department,
There
whether
is,
it's the front desk where they're bringing in monies or through. So again, I mean, the idea that they're out of that office doesn't mean they're doing It's not like they're out mowing the lawn. It's actually still relative to what their expertise is. So
It is.
I think that's
Skill, you're exactly right, skill set.
Yeah, I'd like to see a breakdown
Primary
of,
skill set.
where you expect the time to go, roughly, 40% in finance and 20% in sewer, or that kind of thing, would be helpful to us to know.
and maybe challenge it for the
Like-
next 2 years, and maybe 100% just getting
I
into
might
a new
steer
software.
away from that
I'm going to throw a
percentage
wild
breakdown. I would
idea
just
in
say
there,
Even
too.
roughly,
In fact,
primary
we
skill
get
set.
lit up on this. I got lit up
just
on the
thought.
solid waste facility again. The fact is, you talk cash controls. The fact is, that's finance. The fact is, you may not be physically in the building. You may not always be here. There are ramifications for finance in library. There are finance ramifications in the rec department. A resource to be able to be plugged and played to be able to address some of the cash issues that we're having or could potentially have within those departments for programming benefits everybody.
No, I couldn't agree more.
For short term, I can actually just see them being in finance, because right now we're behind the boat in a sense, just trying to get caught up. So either way, I think it's, to me, I realize where Norm's at. To me, if it's a position that's going to be there regardless, it'd be one thing if we actually were trying to hire someone and not have the money up in next year's budget and had to go through that process, but it's already there. So to me, there's money there for a finance person and for a finance assistant, if that's what you're looking at.
Yeah.
So I would make
We could back right up to before Lydia left. Lydia had made a recommendation that we had heard about.
I like that.
We're
still here.
And me too. So she made a recommendation about an intern that we had, or whatever we want to call her. And she had said, hey, this person should be brought on board. This is the progress that we've made in a very short period of time. Here are the gains that we've made. And I can only imagine if I have her for another year, the gains that we'll make going forward. And I could tell you the temperature then was that we were all on board with that.
Oh, I drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
And
every
because
one
the
of us,
fact is,
because
I knew what we were
trusted
dealing
we trusted what Lydia brought to the table based on results. She demonstrated that this is the progress that we made. It wasn't pie in the sky. It wasn't because Lydia's a good person. She is. But the idea is that she demonstrated it with facts showing us this works. Why would we think it's going to be any different to bring in the
Workload's not gonna
assistant
change.
first? Yeah, and bring the assistant first and get them vested, to use one of Fern's goals, as somebody that we want them to be here and be here for a long time, and move forward.
Okay, so we went from potentially tabling this item to actively discussing it. 'Cause
Well, I was
wouldn't
getting
let you
ready to
do it.
circle around, so
But
thank
so
you for
my
that.
my point being on that, then I would make a conditional recommendation to allow her to put an ad out on the street, subject to Tuesday night. If we don't finance this, that doesn't go. But I want to see the job description for what we're actually asking for.
Yeah, I want to see the job. As long as it's not just bookkeeper, I'm down with the finance or assistant finance director. Because then it also gives us a little bit of latitude as well. Maybe we get a candidate who is not ready to assume a finance director role, but is a strong candidate, somebody who could be someone
Brings the
come
right
along.
tools.
Right, that's right. And we may be able to offer them a role in a different capacity.
Right.
So, all good food for thought.
So-
So
well,
thoughts are coming back around then.
Then by all means, my point, I got, like I said, I repeat, I will make a conditional recommendation to put that ad on the street, subject to it passing muster Tuesday night, that we don't
Can we
kill
do a
it.
straw poll right now of who feels that this ought to be moved forward next Tuesday night, just so we have a better temperature on it, or are you actually?
I'm good.
That's your motion?
Can I,
If you want a straw poll, I would do Ferns.
It's not going to be until the 21st. It's another 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So
So what do we have next week? That was under Council of Communications, where are we in the budget cycle to actually know what I need to do next Tuesday?
Tuesday is the school budget vote.
I gotta listen to Tracy then. It's all you. It's all you. That's not the two people that show up and I get discouraged, right?
All right. So
You're gonna have snacks.
It's under an order. I assume that we wanted to vote on it.
Right.
So the question would be is, do we actually just
We can vote on it here and then be done with it.
That's
to
right.
reword
That's
it?
what
Do
I'm
we
saying.
actually say order 2019-96? Order is to actually allow Diane to post a position for a finance assistant.
I'll second it.
Blank.
Okay,
And there's no need for the conditional, because that means we don't kill it Tuesday night.
Correct.
Right.
All right, so all in favor?
Did you hear? Wait a minute. Did you hear all that, Twyla? Did you get?
Yes, the motion that Alan made was not
That was,
seconded.
no, but exactly right. It died on the floor and we went to Ferns. I'm good with that.
Yeah, okay.
I'm good with that.
So we have a first, we have a
We're
second.
bipolar as
No, no.
hell. Pay attention to people.
Right. It is. Correct.
Yeah. A first and a second. All in favor?
Order passed 6-0.
Go, Diane.
Thank you.
One less thing we have to
Thank
worry
you.
about coming up,
Right.
okay?
Correct.
Moving on.
One more question. You keep saying Tuesday night. Do you think this coming Tuesday that we're going to
No,
be?
21st, you just told me.
Okay.
We're not even talking about it anymore because we're not even talking about it anymore because we just voted on it and it's moving forward. Next.
Next item, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Speed. It'll take a while.
I need to give him a candy. I
Are
should
you
pass
kidding
them.
me?
I should pass them out when I get here.
Hey, that could go the other way too. Easy now.
Next item?
This
Next
is
item.
late.
Yeah, next item.
Next item, please.
Okay.
It's 9 o'clock already.
People
Order
don't have time for that, Norm. Let's go.
2019-97, July 5th office closure.
Oh, man.
Yeah, nobody heard
I
that.
like you.
Because we were all yakking amongst each other.
July 5th office
We've
closure.
lost the room, Chair.
Okay.
So where the
I never
4th
had
of July is on a Thursday this year, we just thought it would be nice to close the office on Friday and everybody would have to use accrued time. It's not a paid holiday. It'll
Yep.
just be accrued time. I've checked
I'll
with
make
all the
that motion.
departments and they're fine with
I'll
that.
second that.
Before I say all in favor, I want to apologize in advance for the people who come to register their vote on July, register their boat or their jet ski or something on July 5th and we're closed.
We will be open on the 6th at the dump, because I guarantee we
Yes.
will get that question.
Right.
We will
Okay,
be.
all in, everybody in favor?
Order passed 6-0.
Thank you. Next item.
That
Order
was a good one. Fast.
2019-98, the June meeting schedule. Move the regular June 18th meeting to June 25.
Pretty straightforward. Anybody got any
I'll make
questions?
the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Bang, look at that.
Order
Progress,
passed
baby.
6-0. And order 2019-99, the town manager to serve in the role of an appointed officer.
That's for finance director, that's for housekeeping until we get this filled by ordinance. There are certain roles that the finance director has to do, and we can't get out of it. So if you appoint me and I'm already bonded, then we can fulfill those roles.
Make the motion. I'll second it.
I got a discussion on this one.
You go.
Sorry, you're gonna have to. Checks and balances, so before there would be the two of you that would be signing off on checks and such, right?
Right now, I have Chief Hagan.
I was gonna ask that question,
Yep.
so if you take on this role, the other check in this is
Is
gonna be
Chief
Chief
Hagan. All his signatures are going on the checks, and then I'm gonna initial them.
And he doesn't he's not required to be bonded to do that.
No, he is not.
So that's what we're trying to avoid, so we don't have to rebond anybody.
This is why I was asking that question. We have
I make
to
that motion.
the checks and
Finance
balances.
director is bonded, though. The finance director
Yeah,
has to be
understood.
bonded, but no, he
Understood.
does not have to.
Yeah,
He doesn't
no,
do bonded for this, he's bonded for others.
It's just the simple checks and balances. Got a motion? Got a second?
We had a second,
Fern
too.
seconded.
Okay, good. All in favor?
Keep up, sir.
Order passed 6-0.
Trying.
Yeah.
Next item, please.
Order 2019-100 to set a workshop to discuss the transfer station operation and finances.
We can do that before, that's later on, isn't it?
That needs to be part of this. And the fact is,
Does
because my intent on this one was the fact that you guys heard me way too much last week on the subject.
This is what
If
you
we're
want to do
adding
next
sta-
Tuesday night?
Yeah, it looks like it.
We can do
coming in-
that.
Are we coming in
Before
early
Tra-
on Tuesday? Is that what you're saying? Right here?
Is Tracy's meeting here?
I think it is.
Because we moved it, because we ended up with an empty gymatorium one year we tried.
We'll be spilling out the doors.
How much time, Alan, do you think we're going to need for that discussion? Is this an hour or 2
An
hours?
hour.
An hour?
Why don't we
keep
do
it
it before the next council, not next week's meeting, but the next council meeting?
So the 21st.
That way, we'll have time to.
That's fine. My intent was to actually not lose sight of it, because where I would want to live on this is whatever change we're going to make is actually intended to pay for the staff that we're adding at that
Right.
facility.
So this is
Right.
6
But
o'clock
we
on the
want to bring you
21st.
some recommendations, and we won't have
Right.
time to do that for next week.
Gives you 2 weeks.
Okay, so
6 o'clock on what day?
June 21st.
21st.
21.
6 p.m.
All in favor?
You need
Who
a
made
motion.
the
Our
motion?
all right.
I'll make a motion that.
Second. All in favor?
All right, 6-0, order passed.
Moving
9
on.
o'clock, man, everything goes
Pay
down.
attention, Twyla. It's moving fast now.
It's like a roller coaster. Put your hands up. Going downhill fast.
Stuff is tight in the corners.
All right, next item, please.
Order 2019-101 to solicit bids for Public Works wheeler body and plow attachments.
Evening,
Okay.
Randy.
Pay
Good to
attention.
see
This
ya.
is important.
Again, I'm Randy Sear, Public Works Director.
You're catching on.
We're, I'm requesting bidding out for a new wheeler to replace a 1999 International, which will no longer get a sticker. So, which leaves me a deficit of at least one truck.
I'll make a motion for discussion.
I'll second it.
Can you use what I sent you?
I can, very helpful.
Good job, Alan.
I got nothing else. Let's move.
That's right.
My discussion was the idea we're trying to move this forward so Randy has the tools he has to go out to bid so we can actually get a potential truck
For two winters from now.
for 2 winters from now instead of waiting longer on, even though we're voting on something that actually isn't money yet, but yet we all know the program.
Right.
All in favor?
Order passed 6-0.
Thank you.
And for the listening dot, that's because it's 10 months to actually get a truck in service from the time you purchase it, same as the fire truck.
Just want to make a point that
Next
we weren't
item. Sorry.
Order
all bids on something we didn't have money
2019-101,
for.
underground diesel tank, additional work.
Yay, Steve.
Good evening, Steve Abioli, Sewer Superintendent. At the time some of this agenda item took place, I was interim Public Works Director, so that's why I'm here doing it, and we didn't dump it on to Randy. But as you know, diesel tank certification is due to expire November 1st. We started a process actually a year ago. We did the certification inspection to get a 10-year extension last year, in July, which is current year. We did that inspection to see where we stood to be able to get the extension. There were some items that were identified that work that needed to take place. Tom Martin, previous Public Works Director, came to you in September 2018 to get approval to do that work, so we could start that process. But that work could not take place until within 6 months of the expiration of the current certification. So basically, May 1st is when it became eligible to do that work. There was some pieces were dropped back then. I can't explain it. I didn't have a part in it. But he did not take that. You gave the approval. Council gave the approval. The quote or contract should have been given to the town manager to sign and return back to Samard to be able to start that process. That part never happened.
Imagine that.
And also as part of that, work that was required to get our annual inspection approved during this past year didn't happen, put us behind the 8 ball. We got a nice letter from the DEP for that. But DEP also paid us a visit in the fall and pointed out more work that was required in order to get our extension. Just made a short story long. But which entails putting a outside emergency shut-off on the outside of Public Works garage along with signage to identify it. Currently there's a shut-off inside the building, which of course the fuel pumps are accessible, or the diesel pump's accessible 24/7 in the event of an emergency. No one can get into the building and shut it off except for probably police and fire for Public Works employees.
Safety
and that's why we're
first.
seeking approval. Samarda has given us a verbal quote. They will, as soon as they'll be out soon to do the work required for the extension, and they'll give us a time and materials quote to do the actual installation of that shut off and the signage. And they quote us a not to exceed $2,500, and we want to hold them to that with your approval. And this will be in addition to the other about $9,000 worth of work that still needs to be done to get the extension. Is there which at $9,000 has already been approved? Make a motion for discussion.
No, please.
And the $2,500 is that money we have in the account? Do we have that money?
One way or the other.
One way or the other, we got to have it,
we
right?
will. I mean, I think he's going to have plenty in his budget left over. In fact, the other amount that you already designated, you had designated that from the Municipal computer fund. I talked to Randy today, and we think there might be plenty left in his budget, so we don't have to take it from the computer account.
And it's a no-brainer.
We'll evaluate.
We don't have an option. This is something that needs to happen.
We have to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
If
this doesn't happen,
Are we going to be able to meet the deadline by November, or will they give us a pass and extend out to
It should happen
finish
quick.
the work?
This has to be done by November 1st, or we cannot use that tank any longer.
Period.
The work would, I think, be done well before
They're
that.
getting ready to start the work right now.
Yeah.
Okay, they are.
Yeah.
Okay. What
So
do we
they've already
anticipate
marked it
turnaround?
out.
Do they have an estimated how long it'll take?
To be honest, I couldn't tell you. That based on the way it was done at the time, I saw quotes. I did not see actual. That wasn't part of any discussion for how long it would take to do it. One portion of what you approved in September was completed in January, in order to get the passing annual inspection report to send to DEP, and that lowered the cost. No, originally it was about $10,500 was what you approved. Of course, because the town itself, we didn't get it done in a timely manner due to changes in regulation and cost of materials, that price rose. So after that one piece was done in January, We've knocked this down to about $9,000 is what is still required. And so we're adding 25. It's probably about $11,500 total. So the cheaper alternative to replacing tanks. So
Yeah, and yes, it'd be over $200,000 replace the tanks.
So what did we fail to do? I mean, I understand he delayed in signing the contract by 90 days, but it was signed on December 26th. So what are we still waiting on Samard to actually do, and why was it a delay on our part?
Well, the delay on our part is because part of that work that you approved was to get the annual inspection report.
Which was already missed the deadline.
And one piece of that work that was in that quote for the extension was required to be done. It ended up costing us about $1,700 more.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, I got you.
So, I have a question. If we approved this in September.
No, he did not. He failed to do it.
No.
you.
Samard provided us with a quote. We did. Right. We approved it for September 18th. Why is this just being brought to our attention now?
Well, because in it was October, November timeframe, DEP was in, and they brought up that the outside emergency shut-off and the signage needed to be installed, and that was required to be done. Tom actually sent, even though he was out at the time in November, he sent an email to Samard asking for pricing on it. I was actually notified by DEP in February. That's when I actually learned about it. It was in February. Kaylee Reeves from DEP sent me an email as we were going back and forth because of the annual inspection report. And I actually included Samard in my reply to DEP, making them aware that we needed a quote, we needed to work with them to so we can get the approval to get it done. We actually just got a quote from Samard last week when we brought up about getting the work done, because we're going to try to get it done by June 15th. That way it's done under this budget, which you approved it to be done under. The repair, I think, will go pretty quick. I mean, they could dig that tank up and replace the whole thing in a couple of weeks. So
It's not on Samard. It's not on Samard. They'll do the work.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all good.
Yeah, they were out last week and they dig safe the site, so they have to do it within 60 days of doing the dig, so they'll be out shortly to do it.
All right.
Anybody with any other questions?
We've exacted our pound of flesh from the previous point. Director.
So we get a motion, we get a second, all in favor?
Past 6 years.
Thank
you,
sir.
Steve.
Don't break
Appreciate
his
you
other
getting
arm.
one up, standing up, taking one for the team, right?
Next
Other
item.
business?
Send two guys over, break your other arm.
Council committee reports.
Ad nauseum, you know what we did for the school, because we looked at it earlier tonight, so I'm good there. Planning board?
Oh, man. It meets Thursday. I got a 6 o'clock meeting with Miss Chair.
Okay. LDC?
Not much since last time. Continuing on.
Excellent. Conservation Commission?
They actually wanted to express that their thanks for supporting what we've done through the budget process, the initiatives for compost, and Richard Main has a clean bill of health with no rejection on his new heart. So
great news.
Things are going good for there.
That's great news. Recreation?
I have to touch base with Mark. I believe they had a meeting last night.
They did, yeah.
Okay. County budget?
Nothing.
And library?
They got their new camera system just installed last week, so now they have cameras in the back room and the children's room and watching the front desk, so it's all monitored and recorded. So if the librarians feel a lot safer there with a camera system in case anybody tries anything funny, and they can see what's going on in the back room to make sure nothing bad's happening back there. So they've got eyes in the sky down there.
So now you can sit in one of the chairs and read 1984 while you feel like Big Brother's watching you. Cool. Oh, good.
They do
That's
delete
awesome.
the tapes after a month.
Sure they do. Next item.
Next item is town manager's report.
So our attorney that's been working on the MS4 waiver, he submitted a waiver to DEP, which has been submitted now to EPA, so hopefully we'll hear something soon on whether we can get out of that MS4 program.
Yeehaw.
It's just done recently because the next permit is due to start our next permit year, so.
As soon as she said that, my blood started to boil.
Don't start.
Okay.
We're working
Move
hard
on
at
before
it.
Chris goes off.
Yeah, that's right.
Me
and Mr. Rut.
Hopefully next week we will get the report from the Phase 2 brownfields
Yay. Good
grant
stuff.
that we're working on for the Rumble Mill site.
Anything else?
Nope.
Next item.
The sludge disposal update.
Exciting stuff. Steve Abioli, Superintendent, once again. You may all be aware of this from what you've seen in the news, a little bit of what's been going on. I just wanted to give an update on how it's affecting us at the wastewater plant. In March, DEP sent out a press release that basically took all licensed facilities in the state that do any type of land spreading of municipal sludge, watered sludge, or spreading of any liquid sludge. They basically put a stop to all of it. No more. You couldn't do it anymore until they did requiring PFAS testing to be done on everything. Well, DEP put that into a memorandum, sent it out, basically shut down the whole industry, so if you want to call it that, here in the state. Our Casella's Organics, who takes our sludge, we're contracted with them, third party, they take it, they compost it, they sell it. They had, it was coming in the spring, they had about 80,000 yards of compost sitting on their facility. They wanted to start selling it. They couldn't sell anything. 80% of their product they make is sold here in Maine. So basically shut their operation down. But at the same time, facilities like ours are still generating it, and it has to go somewhere. So throughout the course of the last month or so, it started a big mess. Casella started doing testing. They actually did some testing back in October, sent it through the DEP with their sampling analysis plans, trying to get approval because they could see the writing on the wall that this was coming. But we as the public didn't know what was going on, not to this extent, until we actually saw what happened at the end of March. So right now for us, we've already had one load that I know of that was actually taken to a landfill, not to their facility, because they started getting overloaded, because they take sludge from 20 to 30 facilities, basically New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine. They bring sludge in. They were running out. They had reached capacity of their facility. DEP has allowed them, since all this has happened, they did their testing, submitted results. DEP allowed them to resume operation, but they had to scale back receiving sludge, some of the type of blends of compost that they make. So we are now being required from Casella to do our own PFAS testing. We're going to submit the results to them. We actually tested beginning of last week. We're still waiting for the test results to see where we stand, but we have no idea what could happen based on our results. I actually asked a question last week when I was talking to Representative Casella's, are they still, asked if they were still receiving our sludge in the compost facility, or is it going to the landfill? He said he couldn't answer that question, which I kind of find that hard to believe, but it is what it is. So it's an unknown right now what could happen if they find a large number of PFAs in our sludge. Different industries have been in this town over the years. We have one over here on St. Anne Street on groundwater remediation. That type of industry is known for PFAs. So who knows what we could find once we get those results. It makes me a little nervous. Wanted to make sure that council was updated, knew what was going on, because they could say, and that we can get test results and submit them, they say we can't take your sludge anymore. No, they said they would provide options to send it to a landfill. If we get put in a position to send our sludge to the landfill, they're already saying that landfill is probably going to require testing on every load that goes to landfill. It's about $400 to $500 to do a test, depending on exactly what you want for the results. But they're saying it's $375 plus a $50 shipping fee plus a $20 for the EDD report that Casella is requiring. So this could get quite pricey. It's an unknown for us. And until we actually get to a point that we know where we stand, I really have no answers or no explanation to tell you what could happen to us. Is there an opportunity? Is there an opportunity for us to be able to determine if we do get high results where it's coming from, so we can pinpoint the idea of?
That's where. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
That's where we would need to. We'd have to start at basically ground zero, and look at most every industry in town. Look at Maine Electronics, Dingley Press, places that could send those type of compounds to us, because it's unknown. The PFAs are in over there's hundreds of different chemicals that make them up. They're put in thousands of different products, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly where they are coming from. But we don't have a lot of industries in this town anymore, so it would maybe be easy to narrow them down. We just don't know until we have to cross that bridge.
Right. But it's a possibility. I mean, it's one of those things where you actually have to evaluate that as we go through.
Right.
Yep. Well, hopefully we get good news. How's that?
Yeah, I have my fingers crossed.
No shit storm. We appreciate the transparency to give us
So
where we're at.
receiving sludge at Casella versus paying at a landfill. I mean, is there a cost if it's going to Casella? If they don't receive it there, we're paying for the landfill disposal as well?
Yes.
And what is that costing us?
That's the landfill disposal itself is an unknown, but we have a contract with Casella to take that sludge out of our facility.
So what they do with it is on their end, and
Basically.
what they're trying to do is, before they do anything with it, they want the testing from us, which is additional $500 beyond what we're actually paying right now.
Yes. Yeah. Right now, we did this one test. Got my fingers crossed that the results are going to come out fine.
Is it the testing requirements? Is it once annually, once quarterly?
That's
every load.
Right now it's an unknown because until we see where we stand, get a baseline, they could say we have to test quarterly. No, we already have certain testing that we do that's done every 6 months. They could add that, PFA's testing in to be required as part of that testing, and this could come directly from DEP.
How many loads of sludge are we talking about? She's monthly.
We dispose of about 700 tons a year. It varies anywhere from between 50 to 70 tons a month.
May I ask one more question? Go ahead. A couple of years back, the federal government had actually changed the levels of what they actually test for allowable releases into the system through main electronics. The numbers that we're talking about, anything to do with any of those numbers that they actually said they didn't need to monitor anymore? Because
Main Electronics actually has a discharge permit with the town. PFAs are not a requirement for them to test for us. And
could it be, though? Could we put that requirement on?
Yes, we can go back and we can actually modify that discharge permit.
And I'm not picking on one particular person.
No.
I remember sitting through the meeting and saying it was really strange that the federal government was actually backing up on the idea of what they were requiring or the limits were to on certain chemicals. But again, it's one of those things where I'm sure there was
one of the other things that we actually talked about too is the fact that we have the luxury in our sewer to actually add additional fees. Right now, it's one fee for everybody. We have the ability to put it in a commercial just for this issue associated with what we now can't get rid of.
Yeah, but that's Plan B. So hopefully Plan A works and it's all good and we can continue on, right?
Yes, yeah. That's there'd be. It's going to be probably not, as long as we still have the landfill option, if we do find out we have an issue, until we can get this sorted out. It eases the pain a little bit, but it's the unknown of not knowing, we generate sludge. There's no getting away from it. We have to have a place to dispose of it. And if it's contaminated with PFAs, there's really nowhere to put it but a landfill. The ultimate goal is you're recycling. We're trying to recycle that product, but we end up sending it to a landfill. And he said,
right. Yes, I heard.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
Better news at times, but it's okay.
Yeah. Well, we anxiously await your next update. Next item.
The one-room schoolhouse.
Mr. Smith's been waiting all night.
Appreciate you waiting, sir.
Good
I'd
job.
like to put siding on that old schoolhouse. The paint does not stay on it, and the porcupines are starting to take the clapboards off.
Is that so? That's the schoolhouse, so the yellow schoolhouse up on the corner of Route 9 and actually Upland Road. I mean, just
it's
so
not
people
on
know.
the historical list because years and years ago the Farmers Association, they gutted the inside all out, but it's still a one-room schoolhouse, and we got it as one inside, so we'd like to try to preserve it as best we could.
Yep. Now maybe we can just get an update to the council about the idea of who actually owns property and maintenance-wise on how that go.
We own it. We own
The town owns it. We maintain it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not here to ask you guys for the money to do it. I don't want to be able to put the siding on it. In full coverage.
Is there anything that actually changes the historic value or
it looks the same as it is now. I'm not changing the shutters and none of that stuff.
if you're the one, and just my own
It is.
opinion, if you're actually willing,
the work, and
if
it's not
it's
on
happening and it's
historical.
going to look better long-term and less maintenance, I think it's, they say vinyl is final, something like that, right? But
Go, Mr. Smith,
Do
go.
do you want help? We can put out some volunteers. They put together a playground pretty much, so they can give you a hand when you decide to go at it.
Well, I'm gonna just hire somebody to, because we gotta have insurance on it, she was telling me.
Yeah. And it's a fairly...
Whoever does it's gotta have insurance.
Yeah.
How, may I ask a
Yeah,
question?
please.
How's the rest of the structure of the building? Is the roof and everything pretty sound?
Oh, I would have had a new roof put on it, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And,
So we're in pretty good shape, just need to make it a little prettier with
yeah,
the
but
side.
the back side there, the porcupine really got to the back side of it, on Nizal side there.
You can't get Mr. Nizal out there with a shotgun?
Yeah, we probably could.
I mean...
Is that something you need to vote for, or is that something we're just...
No, I just wanted, because if he's out there doing work and everybody saw it, I wanted council to know
Absolutely.
what was going on.
We thank you
But
for waiting.
For the
to-
voting,
good job,
for the
Mr.
voting
Smith.
public, we own the property, but he
Exactly.
does the maintenance
And it's
associated
not on
with
the
it, and
historical
It's not on the
register.
historical.
Right.
Review the tape. It's
It is a
recapped
landmark
right
in
there.
time. Make sure it's yellow, so everybody knows that we turn by the yellow schoolhouse.
Hey, thank you.
We're all
Thank
in
you
trouble.
very- Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't make it orange.
Yeah.
Next item.
Appointments, none. Council communications?
Norm, do you want to do this? The shoulder rehab?
Yeah, that's right, we didn't. We jumped ahead, didn't we?
Yeah.
Let's pull it up. Let's talk about it right now. So Randy, come up here.
That's right. Randy's still here, too.
Public Works Director Randy Sear, how you doing?
Tired.
I actually seen brand new pavement in town today.
Yes.
That Pine Woods Road
Amazing.
stuff, yeah.
It's getting there. On that line, part of the $588,000 or $580,000 for the original bid to Allstate, there was a line item for $25,070. That was to do the shoulder rehabilitation and lawn work,
Miriam?
which
Thank you.
needs to be addressed because now that the Whitney and Madeline have been done, we have to do ditching along that, and we'd like to get, well, Allstate would like to get the PO or the okay to do the rehabilitation, because some of the roads don't need it, but they'd like to do a little more ditching on the Whitney and Madeline because of the drainage issue that we got going on. Hasn't been ditched out in a long time, and there's some yards that are going to need some rehabilitation so it flows evenly into the road. This should have been done a long time ago, back when the 130 and the $50-something thousand change order was made. That should have gone along with it because it takes care of all these roads that are listed down below. And with Warren Circle just getting reclaimed today, and Whitney and Madeline, that essentially will end up stalling because they want to pave Warren Circle on the 26th. And as soon as they can, they're going to start paving Madeline, Whitney, get their base in so we can do our work and get the ready for surface.
I assume this is going to be a vote. Or...
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I just have a question as to the reason why we have to keep requisitioning if the amount was already voted on to pay for the paving. I wasn't around when that whole thing took place last year.
You didn't want to be here.
Probably not.
It's not a good time.
Okay. But my question is, the original contract was $588,000, and just moving forward, I would just hope that I don't have to come to a meeting to requisition for every little thing because it's going to hold us up. Because they won't start anything unless we have a documented letter from Diane saying that she's okaying this money. Well, this money won't get okayed unless we come to a meeting. I just don't want to hold up any part of the paving projects.
If you don't bring us a bid that's $200,000 upside down, you won't have the heartache.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I'm paying for it now because I only have $200,000.
Yeah. You're feeling the sting of the guy that came before you. So that said, as long as you actually put a bid scope back out there, and the struggle you're going to get is the fact that it's 40% increase. So we need to be realistic in what we're asking for within the existing budget, or with the 475 that we have now that's going out on the streets that we've already given you authorization to move forward on, the fact that give yourself an out clause that I'm only going to go to the 40/75. If you
Right.
can't guarantee that that's going to get done, I need
Right.
to be able to step out.
Exactly.
You won't have this issue that
Right.
we had last year.
Right.
Where you had the issue last year was the fact that I want to spend all of last year's money plus $200,000 next year, and you
Right.
want me to look the other way and say that's great.
Yeah,
In an
no.
election year with 3 of us, we're up.
Right.
That's a solid plan.
You're still here, so it worked. I'll make a motion to
My exit plan
to
didn't
approve
work.
the 25,070 to be released to Allstate for the shoulder work.
Second?
We've already discussed it enough.
Crickets.
You did well.
Yeah.
Order passed 6-0.
All right, thank you.
Cut you off.
No, it's all good. Just trying to move it along.
My mother just tells me to tie a knot in it. It's easier.
Next
Just for you to
item.
Shut up everything.
Excuse me.
Council Communications.
Okay. Everybody got anything?
Let's move on.
Communicate to move along.
Audience
If you
participation.
don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Flags. I made a lot of noise. I sent a lot of information to you guys. I would like to be able to move forward on that. The corridor associated with between Lisbon and Lisbon Falls, I can already tell you my father and I are willing to be able to pay the expense. I just need to know what that expense is.
Is that on the polls, Alan? Why don't you elaborate
Yes.
more?
By all means, we had it up like 4 or 5 years ago. It was a private individual or individuals that actually paid to do that. I want to put them back up because anybody who knows my mother knows that she was a flag nut, and that is Lois all day, every day. So
Okay, I've done, do I have to announce myself again? I just said.
No, you're good. You're good.
Randy Sear, Public Works Director.
All right, so what I found out in counting what's going on, from Route 9 to Main Street in the Falls, there's only actually 4 mounts for flags, for the actual flag poles. From Frost Hill, we get 2 before Frost Hill towards the Big Dipper. From Frost Hill to the town line in Lewiston, there's 16 that have the application to put the flagpole into. I don't know what you want to do, if you want to, because there's really...
give me a price for 20
It's
flags.
really, okay, because it's really sparsely located on this end of town, on the falls end, because you only have 4 between Route 9.
Sure.
Usually it's like every other pole,
Yep.
or every third pole, and
Some of them just don't work situationally. I drove that too, and there's stuff on the poles that, you got to skip this one. I get that.
yeah, because you get all kinds of cables and stuff hanging off, and street signs, whatever.
But I just remember seeing those associated with that. I'm comfortable. If you give me a price for 20, I will write you a check.
Okay. What we're going to do is my assistant has all that information because we just ordered flags for the flag poles in town.
Yep.
So he did find a vendor through Amazon that is really reasonably priced.
Yep.
And we just needed to know how much you wanted to buy because quantity means everything,
Yep.
And then also if you wanted to purchase extras, but you're saying 20 is the cap.
Start me at the 20 right now and at least get it started because
Okay.
I already have an idea for year 2. I would like to move forward banners. And the first one's already sponsored.
Oh, yeah, look at that. I like that.
The
That's
fact
awesome.
that these are designed to be 2 foot by 5 foot, in my environment on these is if you actually get idiots like myself that are willing to be able to sponsor it for a veteran, the fact is it's $150 well spent. It doesn't cost the town a dime.
Right.
And I would like to partner with somebody like the American Legion to make that happen.
Okay.
And that this is all courtesy of an idea that came through Lewiston that they aren't going to move forward. I took the opportunity to Photoshop that up. There's a company that actually specializes in it, and the fact that that's year 2. I just think that basically we can work with all the stuff that we're talking about for cleaning up our image in town, and these are things that I think that are just completely in a lot of people's wheelhouse.
Okay.
So
Good press?
good press.
We like good press.
We need some, especially this
Then you
week.
take this to them. Pardon the name.
Yeah.
I took liberties because I know the guy.
Don't pardon the name. That's
I know.
So you all set with that? Is there anything else that needs to be done with that, or you all good?
No, I'll get you a check. Appreciate it. Thank you, Randy.
No, you're okay. I'm letting him
Midnight hour.
finish. Okay. Thank you, Councilor Wood. Next item?
Is executive session. Order
still gotta stay?
2019-103 to go into executive session.
Okay.
MRSA
Will there be a vote?
405.
Should have started this.
I make a
There
motion?
might be a vote.
There might be a
Second, all in favor?
Real estate.
Going into executive session. Thank you all.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere, though.
I know.
Take care.
Just sitting back.
Acquisition Taxation and
Sitting right
disposition
back.
of real property.
Steve, what'd you do to your wing?
Like I could,
Did you break it or just you're pretty good sprain?
bought one of these and have my grandpa's name put on it.
Yeah.
Put it out in the telephone pole in front of my.
I'm sorry.
Cool, cool. I'm in for one.
That's what I want.
Well,
Because the fact is, all the
hopefully you're
other
feeling
folks-
better soon. No problem.
It's gotta be, everybody's gotta.
Know somebody.
Somebody in the family.
Oh,
It's my
absolutely.
daughter. You know what she's saying? Get milk, Dad. That's what I'm getting blown up about. Get milk.